back somehow. All I know is that things change. We find a way to make it through. 'Cause all we know is that things change, but it's not so bad with you. White knuckles on the way down, but my friends are all around. White knuckles, letting go now. All my friends, they help me out. White knuckles on the way down, but our friends are all around. White knuckles, letting go now. All our friends, they help us out. Everything's better now, finding my way back somehow. Everything is better now. Finding my way back somehow. Everything is better now. Finding our way back somehow. Losing my cool, breaking my rules. I don't usually get so out of my head, walking the edge. What am I falling into? Out here again, where do we land? Tell me, is it too soon? Losing my cool, breaking my rules. I'm going crazy over you. I know you say you're not afraid to dive into something. You got nothing to lose, but I'm not that way. Taking my sweet time, don't wanna be the one to cry. But I'm losing my cool, breaking my rules. I don't usually get so out of my head, walking the edge. What am I falling into? Out here again, where do we land? Tell me, is it too soon? Losing my cool, breaking my rules. I'm going crazy over you. My hands, they shake when you walk into the room, and I can't think straight. There's no one like you, but I wanna chase this feeling with you. Don't walk away from this tonight. I'm going with you. Losing my cool, breaking my rules. I don't usually get so out of my head, walking the edge. What am I falling into? Losing my cool, breaking my rules. I don't usually get so out of my head, walking the edge. What am I falling into? Out here again, where do we land? Tell me, is it too soon? Losing my cool, breaking my rules. I'm going crazy over you. Crazy, I'm going crazy. Crazy over you. Crazy, got me crazy. Crazy over you. Losing my cool, breaking my rules. I don't usually get so out of my head, walking the edge. I'm going crazy over you.
Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. Who cares? You know I won't admit it. If your girl has gotten it, she gotta scratch it. But I ain't no snitch, no, I ain't no snitch. Maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't. I swear either way, you'll never know it. Go ahead and ask, but I ain't talking. 'Cause I ain't no snitch, no, I ain't no snitch. I'm a klepto, not a psycho. Let's go. Prove it. Think that I'm a liar, then prove it. Think that I'm a thief, then do it. Go ahead, call the Scully, go ahead, call the Scully. You ain't finding nothing on me, yo, prove it. Go ahead, check my phone, yeah, do it. Check the skellies in my closet, go through it. Go ahead, call the Scully, go ahead, call the Scully. You ain't finding nothing on me. Maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. but you ain't my conscience, so screw it. If I feel like it, you know I gotta do it. You know I can't help it, you know I can't help it. Gold and silver give me weak knees. It ain't us around my neck unless I can't breathe. When you gonna let it, just stop asking me. Cause I ain't no snitch, I ain't no snitch. I'm a klepto, not a psycho. Prove it, think that I'm a liar, then prove it. Think that I'm a thief, then do it. Go ahead, call the Scully, go ahead, call the Scully. You ain't finding nothing on me, you'll prove it. Go ahead, check my phone, yeah, do it. Check the skellies in my closet, go through it. Go ahead, call the Scully, go ahead, call the Scully. You ain't finding nothing on me. Some call me a bandit, that they say it's a bad habit. But one thing that they can never say, I'll be is red-handed. Some call it a blessing, others say that it's a curse. You can tell me which is which, I think the line's a little blurred. How could you accuse me? I'm just a lady. I've never done a thing wrong in my life. How could you blame me, little old me? Do you see any deceit in my eyes? Would I lie? I'm a klepto, not a psycho. Prove it, think that I'm a liar, then prove it. Think that I'm a thief, then do it. Go ahead, call the Scully, go ahead, call the Scully. You ain't finding nothing on me, you'll prove it. Go ahead, check my phone, yeah, do it. Check the skellies in my closet, go through it. Go ahead, call the Scully, go ahead, call the Scully. You ain't finding nothing on me. Some call me a bandit, that they say it's a bad habit. But one thing that they can never say, I'll be is red-handed. Some call it a blessing, others say that it's a curse. You can tell me which is which, I think the line's a little blurred. I'm a klepto, not a psycho. I know you're the color in the lines type. Never shake things up kind. Don't speak your own line. I know you, everything has limits. Obey, don't ask questions. And you're the one trying to make me listen. My head was made for the clouds. Want me, come get me, I'm not coming down. Are you mad? I don't care. Don't understand? I don't care. I'm just here to pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop. I'm just here to pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop your bubble. You think you can control me, but you don't really know me, so I'm just here to pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop. I know you, dreams are way too risky. Scared of anything you find too tricky. Don't let me, I'm too witty. I know you, with your do's and do nots. Trying to get me to stop, but you're in for a shock. My head was made for the clouds. Want me, come get me, I'm not coming down. Are you mad? I don't care. Don't understand? I don't care. I'm just here to pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop. I'm just here to pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop your bubble. You think you can control me, but you don't really know me, so I'm just here to pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop your bubble. I'm just here to pop your bubble. I'm just here to pop your bubble. You think you can control me, but you don't really know me, so I'm just here to pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop. I'd rather go to jail and live a life completely boring. I'd rather ask forgiveness than permission, cause it's funny. I think it's funny. I'm just here to pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop. I'm just here to pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop. You think you can control me, but you don't really know me, so I'm just here to pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop. I'm just here to pop your bubble. I'm just here to pop your bubble. I'm just gonna pop your bubble, baby. You think you can control me, but you don't really know me, so I'm just here to pop your bubble.
to play your own game. Cover it up, don't let them know what you're thinking. I bet you never tell them how it feels. I bet you never even try to be real. You won't go fooling me twice now, baby. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. You won't go fooling me twice now, baby. I'm sorry, that's the way it is, yeah. Don't you think like that? I will love you endlessly. If you'd only believe in me. Don't you be like that? I will love you forever. If you'd only believe in me, yeah. In me, yeah. I told you once, baby, I told you once what I know. You got to let it go. I told you once, baby, I told you once what I know. You got to let it go. You won't go fooling me twice now, baby. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. You won't go fooling me twice now, baby. I'm sorry, that's the way it is, yeah. Don't you think like that? I will love you endlessly. If you'd only believe in me. Don't you be like that? I will love you forever. If you only believe in me, yeah. In me, yeah.
Good morning, crack student gamers, and welcome to the British University Esports Championship Spring 2022. It's been a long time coming, and we're now live from Insomnia. We're back bigger than ever. We have so much going on here.
It's a place for all competitive gamers to come along. Even if you're not amazing, you can still take part, which is really nice, and you meet so many different students from different unis. It's just really nice, like a fun place to be.
And the NSE, being at Insomnia, is really amazing. Especially a small, isolated university like Oxford, it's great to meet other students who are into esports.
So we've got a spectator area where the student communities come and they're meeting up for the first time in probably 2 years, getting to watch the finals, and then we've also got the teams on stage playing against each other. And then also we've got a student LAN as well, as kind of like a mini LAN in a wider bring your own computer over the weekend. Super grateful for our sponsors. Our headline partner is Intel. We're also partnered with Barclays, Monster Energy, providing loads of Monster Energy to keep everyone fueled over the weekend. PC Specialist, Special Effects, and we're also partnered with Bucks as well.
Everyone in the university scene is so welcoming and so lovely. You don't see people like this anywhere else, like in a community together. And it's just all about creating those connections with different people, and it's just really amazing.
Welcome to the NSE British Esports Championships Grand Final for Fortnite. I am Waxon and I'm joined by none other than the outstanding Mini Miner to bring you all the action from today's 5 Grand Final games. Mini, welcome to the stream.
Thank you so much, Waxon. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited for the games. We've got 5 games of Fortnite action today, duos format as well. I'm super excited to get stuck in.
So am I. I must agree with you, especially after what were 5 formidable performances from all of the teams 1 week ago on Tuesdays. Let's take a quick look at what the teams have done so far. And yeah, Mini, take us through it.
Well, QUB Esports, 201 points in the first place position. As you can see, they're quite far ahead. They've had quite a lead already, which is good to see. They've had 80 eliminations, Waxon. What a start for them. They're on top.
Not too shabby at all. It's almost doubling the second team Riot double flank Z. And you know, QUB Esports will have to come into today keeping up the same form, but that's going to be very, very hard with all of the teams having a week to prepare to combat them.
Yeah, they've had this week, this is what happened last time. This is the previous 5 games. Now it is the final 5 games, if you like. They've had this week to prepare for it. They've looked over the VODs, hopefully, and, maybe ironed out a few mistakes, any errors that they've made. Hopefully, we won't be seeing any more of those, and hopefully fixing a few mistakes that they've made to hopefully put on a great show for us today.
But looking at how the teams can come back and maybe access that top 5, top 3, or even maybe contest QUB for the top 1 position at the end of today, we need to take a quick look at the way we're going to give points to the teams for the games today. And we have Victory Royale with 45 points, but even coming in second or third, getting more than 30 points for placement. That is unbelievable.
Yeah, this is a sort of placement-heavy format, right? We're used to seeing a little bit lower placement points, but with 1 point per elimination, this is a real placement-heavy format. 45 points for the Victory Royale. For these teams, it's going to be about who can survive the longest, who can outlast everyone else, whilst combining that with a few eliminations here and there as well. Picking a few up, that's going to be very important. But for these teams, survival is key right here. You can see the placement points on the screen all the way down to even 10th place. A top 10 is going to get you 15 points. You need 15 eliminations just to get that, with eliminations alone. So it's going to be all about placement today, but also a little bit of a balance as well.
15 eliminations to get the 10th place, or 45 to get the first amount of points that you get for a Victory Royale. And you mentioned surviving. That's going to prove to be quite a challenge, even for the Titans that are currently leading in QUB. And why is that? Well, that is because we will not be running the current competitive patch.
Yeah, we'll be playing it in pubs. We're going in the pubs game mode as well. So you might be wondering, what does that change? What does that sort of make different from the traditional competitive modes? A lot is the answer to that question. We've got plenty of items, plenty of sort of NPCs, even differences in the loot pool that we aren't used to seeing in the typical competitive modes. So it's going to throw a few spanners in the works today. I'm excited to see which teams can really, deflect the spanners, if you like, take them away from the works and hopefully find success.
Do you think such a format puts the team that is maybe the favored going into these 5 games at a disadvantage, or maybe even more of an advantage that they can abuse these things that might be considered, just slightly overpowered?
Yeah, there's some items in the game right now that's in the non-competitive version that aren't quite as competitively balanced, but it's going to be about who can use those items to their advantage the best. There's so many items in the game. It's not just going to be the standard loot that you see in competitive. We're going to have so many options, so much variety, and so many options for these teams to pick depending on their playstyle. Are we going to see teams go for higher eliminations? Are we going to see teams carrying some more heals potentially? It's going to make for an interesting dynamic sort of between the duos, and how these teams are going to approach today is going to be the most important thing. As you mentioned, it's not the typical competitive format. We're not going to have the standard, the Hammer AR and the Prime, everyone running that. We're going to see some variety today, and I'm excited to see which teams will use that variety to their advantage.
We were speaking just a bit earlier before we went on air about also how the change impacts the map we're going to see, and maybe even some of the rotations that the teams not only have to change from their competitive pool, but also the rotations and the drop spots they might have adjusted from last week.
Yeah, so we have some of course, new drop spots that have been, or maybe some changes to the drop spots as of the latest update. Of course, we have the vehicles in the game as well, which we're not used to having in the typical competitive mode. So there's definitely a difference in rotations. Will we see that today? I'd imagine so. I'd imagine seeing a lot of teams using the vehicles, particularly with those chonkers tires as well, chucking the tires on the vehicle, maybe even adding a cowcatcher on the front, just to bolster their rotations. And hopefully for these teams, they'll be able to make their way through these zones really, really effectively. We're not used to seeing that in competitive. We're not used to seeing vehicles. We're not used to seeing these crazy items. So will we see the teams that are more competitively focused struggle? I don't think so, personally. I think we're going to see a lot of teams that are used to playing the game. They can adapt. That's what Fortnite's all about, adaptability. And we're going to see who's the best today.
As we are slowly approaching game 1 of today, or game 6 of this overall grand finals, so let's slowly start making our way and talking a bit more about the current map. Well, you already touched a bit on some points and some of the drops that we might see, but considering, the format we have right now, if you survive, you just get more points. You could last to maybe, like you said, a top 10 and get 15 points. Do you think that's going to maybe push some teams that aren't as confident in their current skill level compared to the others, go for unconventional drop spots, maybe edge of maps? Just let the good teams duel it out in the beginning, lose their lives, and while we rack up the points, just surviving at the edge of the zone.
Yeah, we'll definitely see that difference today, right? If you're a little bit more confident in picking up eliminations in mid-game, you are likely to go for those more sort of higher value drop spots, right? Where the better loot is, you get more of a chance. Maybe there's some vaults, maybe there's some key crates. You get better chance to get better loot. But of course, that's going to come at a cost. That's going to come with high risk, high reward factors. So for these teams that are going to be landing there, they need to make sure that their aim is on point, their mechanics are on point. But as you mentioned, so for some of the teams that are a little bit slower, they want to play it a little bit differently. They think, you know what, let's land on an edge POI. We're not going to be able to, get contested by all the players. We're not going to have that early damage, those early skirmishes. But what we will be able to do is loot at our own pace. We'll be able to rotate in at our own pace and not have to worry too much about those third parties, because that's ultimately what's most important here. Who's going to be the one that's going to be taking the fight and then risking that third party coming in?
We got to talk a bit about NSE itself. This is one of the first Fortnite tournaments we have as part of the NSE, and it's also very early in the season. So a victory here, getting the first place, as we have already a team pretty much running away with it after 5 games from last week, is going to guarantee your university team will be the front runners for the next month or month and a half until the following tournament. And that must be such a confidence booster, especially so early at the beginning of a season.
Yeah, huge stakes on the line today, not just for the individual prizing today, but for the wider scope of the points on the leaderboard as well. Of course, if you don't know, this is a university league. This is where universities go head to head, and this is just a small section of their points. So if these guys can, get some points today, get them points on the board for their university, as you mentioned, it's going to be I think it is the first event in this current series. So for the team that comes out on top, their university will be right at the top. And what better place to start off? Right at the top, tippity top.
Of course, and you mentioned the individual placing and this actual grand finals. For some of these players, some of these students taking part in this tournament, they maybe never competed or maybe never had the opportunity to get to a grand finals where they could earn maybe a bit of cash. And the prize pool goes all the way until place 13 to 16. And this brings me back, if you are one of the teams that maybe you realize we have no chance of actually winning, guaranteeing the first place, but every placement point matters, and every step you take can get you closer to getting into the money. And it's not necessarily about the financial here, but for you as an early player, because maybe some of these Fortnite players are very young or very new to the competitive scene, this could be the confidence boost that they need in order to accelerate a future career in esports.
Yeah, and this is what sort of student collegiate level esports is all about, right? This is about giving a platform to these players that maybe don't have the experience, that don't have even the confidence to go for some of these higher value, higher sort of, the high prizing tournaments like the cash cups and stuff like that. Maybe we're thinking, we're not going to go for them. We're not good enough. But this is a perfect stage. It's a perfect testing ground, proving ground for the teams that maybe are in that situation. There are, of course, great players, talented players that we're going to be seeing on show today. But this could be a huge stage for them. It is a big stage, but other people to have a look. It's like, actually, that player is very, very good. Maybe we will recruit him into our trio, our squad, maybe to find some players to play with in future tournaments as well. So such a huge opportunity, as you mentioned, not just financially.
Speaking of the big stage, I must ask you, Mini, all the 5 games last week were played off stream. And we know how pressure can get to some players, and how Fortnite and most esport titles are very momentum-based games. Let's break it down. First of all, the momentum. you are the team leading in charge. 200 points, you're in front, you have to take a 7-day break. All of your momentum might be gone out the window. How do you deal with that pressure? You want to be the top dog. You are the top dog going into the second grand final. This is not something that we really used when it comes to the grand finals, having a 1-week break between your 10 games.
Yeah, this is definitely not something we're used to, right? And you can see it in two ways. You can see it as a negative. You can see it as, momentum's going. We're not going to be able to pick up from that. Or you can see it as a positive, right? You have 7 days now. How can we use this time effectively? Looking at the VODs, looking at our mistakes, fixing things, maybe bringing on a coach as well to think, okay, how do we fix this problem that we had last time? And how do we resolve it in today's finals? That's good. That's what's going to separate the teams that are going to be popping off today and really doing great versus the teams that maybe sort of fizzle out towards the beginning, because that's what's most important. In this game, in Fortnite, if you're not too familiar with it, for those at home, it is all about reviewing those VODs, right? You have to do your research. You have to look at your own gameplay, as it is with most esports titles. Look at what you're doing wrong. How can we fix it? And then implement that into the future games. The teams that are going to do that best today, they're going to find all the success.
And now getting on to the second part of what you said previously, the big stage. And I mentioned this, last 5 games, half of the grand final itself was played offline. Not the pressure of, maybe having tens or hundreds of people watching you perform live on Twitch. For some of these players that might be slightly more inexperienced or might have that competitive experience, but not to be forefront of a stream being casted for the people. How do you cope with that pressure? Can you cope with that pressure? Is there any way you can prepare for something that you've not experienced before?
It's very difficult, isn't it? It's very difficult to prepare for something that you have no expectations as to how it's going to go. But I think for these teams, you just have to be confident. You have to be confident in your own abilities, and that comes with practice. If you have put the practice in, you put the hours in, watching the VODs, practicing, doing some scrims with your team, I think you have that confidence already. It's like, let's just keep doing what we've been doing. So what? We've got a few hundred people watching. We've got some people watching us. It's okay. I think this is going to be another great opportunity for those teams that are a little bit less experienced but have done the work to show what they can do. This is going to be a huge stage, a huge opportunity for the players that maybe haven't been put under that limelight before to have that experience. And no doubt that the future will be great for these players that will succeed.
Pressure makes diamonds indeed, and I can't wait to see the diamonds that we're going to have at the end of the next 5 games from today. With that in mind, we took a look at the standings, and we've been mentioning QB time and time again. They seem to be an unstoppable force. But are they your favorites going into this last 5 games?
Yes. Yes, they are. For me, I mean, when a team is so far ahead, right? It doesn't, we see it so often with Fortnite where there's some big upsets. We have teams that are so far ahead going in, maybe an FNCS sort of format where they're going in such a huge lead in day 1, and then it all crumbles, it all falls apart in day 2. Anything can happen, but QB on such a rampaging run so far, 80 eliminations. You don't just get 80 eliminations by luck. It's not a fluke, let's be honest. They're a solid team. They know how to manage it, and I'm sure that I hope that the pressure won't get to them. I'm sure it won't, because putting on a performance like that, they've given themselves a very nice cushion, and they'll be sitting on it very comfortably because they'll be happy with it. I think they're going to stay out on top today. Will we see some upsets though? We'll find out.
When you have such a strong team, and a juggernaut in your grand final that probably you're aware it's quite hard to beat them, is that the moment when you maybe set sight on second, third place? And that's when you might deploy some tactics as maybe dropping onto some of those teams that are maybe in the top 10 that you think we could take on, maybe push further back at the end of the queue, and maybe you can replace them in that top 10. Is that something that you think we might expect to see from the teams that are further lower down after the first 5 games so far today?
Yeah, I think potentially we might see some switch of strategies, and that's what I was talking about. Those 7 days in which you can prepare. How do we approach these next 5 games? It's not going to be copy paste. It's not going to be cookie cutter as to what we saw last week. We're going to see some changes, I'm sure. We're going to see some, what we didn't see actually. I wasn't streamed, but what the players would have experienced is not going to be the same. It's going to be something different. It's going to be something fresh. So it's going to be which team is the most adaptable on the day. You can prepare as much as you like, but if the team has not got their strategy nailed for today, they're not going to find too much success. But on that point of dropping on people, the strategies could go crazy. We could see a team that is in last place rocket their way up, maybe into that top 5, and that's we have to identify which teams are the best.
Well, we don't have to wait any longer, ladies and gents, because game number 6 of the grand finals is now underway with Waxon and Mini Miner. We are off to the races, Mini.
We are off to the races, and the races shall be amazing, I'm sure. We have game number 6, game 1 of the day, of course, and we get to see a little overview as to where all the players are landing, which drop spots they will be preferring, and here we go at the top of the map. We can already see teams going for the less congested side of the zone. Some players not opting to go to Shiny Sound either, which is an interesting one. That's actually been just buffed in the latest update today, so maybe that's a result of not having the practice, not having the experience at that drop, but we get to see a nice distribution of all the different teams. Of course, this is duos format if you have just tuned in. We're going to see some off-spawn contestation going on right now, I'm sure.
Speaking of the format, I am just receiving note that some teams are unable to fill a duo for the first game of the series, so we will be having a couple of solos running around, and that must be very, very difficult, especially when you go into your first game of the second week of the Grand Finals, right, Mini?
Yeah, that's terrifying. I spoke about Spanner in the works earlier. That's a solo in the works right now, and that's not ideal. That's not what we want at all. But we can see a little bit of action already brewing at the Flutter Barn. We see Cheeto and David right now. They're just hunting down their opponent, trying to pick up maybe some tags early on. But we have this tornado here, and this is what we were talking about before. This is in the public game mode. This is not in arena. This is not in this typical competitive mode. This is the pub mode, and you can see what it means because players can use that. Not so humble, unfortunately. And we'll be falling straight away as the first player that does go down here, and that's the difference. You can have tornadoes in the game, Waxon, and the teams that are going to use them well are going to come out on top.
Not so humble, being humbled very early on in this game number 1 of today, being the first player to be taken out. As I say that, somewhere across the map, we have Marley and David. Oh, David finishing the kill onto Not So Humble, and Marlon getting the second off already. And Cheeto is sitting pretty nicely right here in the Flutter Barn, getting a couple big shields in, and I have plenty of time to loot all the way around, I think.
Yeah, that's a crucial moment for this team, right? You're able just to take out the team that are contesting you. You can dominate. You can make sure that you are the king of the area. And just that's a huge statement to make in game number 1, right? You want to make sure that you are the team that's dominating. For David and Cheeto right now, they are the ones that are going to be dominating this area. They've claimed it. They've claimed it as their domain, if you like, and they'll hopefully continue to have that throughout today. But speaking of solos here, we have Kaylee all alone. Only the grey pistol's not quite going to do enough damage. We see the mini in the inventory as well. Potentially that will be popped in just a sec. I think it's the Greasy Grove fights that we were seeing earlier on in the feed brewing and going on, all just boiling over right now. But I think this team, they're just happy to chill here. You know what? We're going to take the loot. We got that early elimination. We'll take them out. And now we can just have the rewards for our efforts.
Great attempt from some teams to contest maybe some of these higher POIs. But speaking of strong POIs in this current meta, and I know, again, bringing back to the fact we are playing on the pub server right now, but what do you think are some of the go-to POIs, especially if you're one of the strong contending teams today?
I think for me, it's got to be Greasy Grove is one of them, right? Greasy Grove is definitely
absolutely
one of the power POIs we can see on the screen right now. Also, Shiny Sound. Now, what's interesting about that is nobody's actually gone here in the first game. Shiny Sound right to the north side of the map. It's actually been buffed in the latest update, so huge potential for loot there. Maybe some of the teams that do fall a little bit earlier on, they'll be thinking, okay, let's have a little look. Where's uncontested? Where can we go to? Shiny Sound should definitely be up there as an option. And as I say that, we got 14 right now just taking out Livesey, and that's a fantastic elimination. They're going to push off the back of that. Luke is going to have to retreat back down, as now this team are just going to close it out, surely. And there it is. It's 14 that gets the 2 eliminations and the 3 off spawn for this team.
14 and Apparel so far seem to have, well, they seem to be in cruise control when it comes to Greasy Grove, and I think the way their opponents didn't manage to get a few shots in, maybe not even deal any damage, I think we will see some changes of drop spots coming into game number 2 later today from the other 2 duos.
Yeah, some changes in drop spots could definitely happen. Of course, Tilted Towers being another one of the power POIs that we might be seeing some players use, as we have David right now. The Flutterbarn action will continue. It's not peace and quiet for David and Cheeto as of yet. They've already had this contestation off spawn as Mike decides to make their way in, and now Cheeto chunks some damage down to the white HP. David's going to have to come over and try to help as Cheeto's backed into a corner. Can he make it out? But no, he cannot. It's Roehampton and Mike that take him out. Now it's just David all alone and on his lonesome. This is going to be a tough one. I think he's just going to play it very, very slowly. Just play for, hopefully, the reboot card here if he can.
Plenty of time for David to get the reboot card. Maybe hoping that the opponents, Mike and Abs, gonna take an easy, safe route out. What would you do in this situation if you're Abs and Mike? Would you be camping the reboot card? Would you be chasing for David, or you just move on with your happy you got a kill, 1 LM point, and keep on ahead of rotation?
Yeah, I think having that early elimination is good, right? You want to be making sure you're getting those eliminations, but you don't want to overextend. And especially since the zone is a little bit further away, they definitely want to be trying to look to rotate as opposed to overextending for this elimination. As we see 14 right now. And Peroxy, they're just looking to try and pick up some potential more eliminations as they're opening up the vault as well. Now, these vaults are dotted around the map. They're hovering above the sky with the balloons, and they yield some great loot, some real great loot for these teams that can utilize them and find the keys to open the vaults. But now they could be in a bit of trouble as Itami decides to just use the launch pad all the way up. 14 is taking some damage as well. They're going to have to connect with their shots, but they don't, as Itami does.
Now Parox in a 1 versus 2, getting taken down very easy by Itami with the double. Itami just taking over and now having access to the vault, getting all of the loot, and all the damage that was dealt will be, well, essentially nullified with these chugs. A couple of big shields, splashes, so much loot, and I thought Parox was, looking to have a great start of the game too, but Itami and Sky have something completely else in mind for them.
Yeah, I mean, 14 and company there, they were getting eliminations off spawn. I was thinking the same. 3 eliminations off spawn. Things were looking peachy for them, but unfortunately, there's always a team to ruin the party. And for Itami and company, they are the ones to be doing that. They just reap the rewards of that vault as well. They can rotate their way in using the balloon. Key Dog right now, just on the right side of the screen. Potentially another solo. We see, as we see another player on the screen. We've got Dota and Stiv all the way inside the center of the map, and they're enjoying themselves just with nobody around right now. This is a nice situation for them. They can control their rotates, and they can be in control as to when they rotate, how they rotate. And it looks as though they're opting to just rotate on foot for now.
I think that might be the correct choice, as we saw the strong duo of Itami and his partner just, flying across them, and I think that's going to be a great news for Stiv and Dota 2 for life, just here surviving, avoiding their opponents that seem to be in a really hot moment, especially today. But I gotta commend Dota 2 for life, 10 out of 10 nickname for one of our players on screen right now.
Very creative indeed. That's what we like to see, as we see them getting creative with the builds as well. They're getting some brick as Itami takes out another player in the feed, absolutely popping off at the early stages of this game, and that's what we like to see. Again, Sky picking up 1 as well. That brings their total up to 4 for this game. These guys, they're not shy. They're not shy of getting those eliminations. They're not shy of some action, which is what I like to see. And this is what we were talking about earlier: a difference in teams. The teams that are going to be going for more aggressive plays, the teams that are going to be a little bit more passive. I think I see the sort of aggressive teams here. I think this is one of them.
By far, so far, Sky and Itami, the 2 players to look out for. And as I say that, they are just padding onto Lord Elthorium, and they're going to be pushing quick. Lord seems to be in a 1v2, no duo by their side. Itami just behind in the enemy lines, going to break the builds. Oh no, the teammates around, but they still managed to get the kill. Itami gets taken out by Lord Elthorium before losing their life. It is now a 1 versus 1. Dog versus Sky. You see Sky pushing very aggressive. Dog gets a nice tag, but nice building coming in from Sky. Just a couple shots away, trying to get the res. Just a few splashes to keep Tommy alive. 1 splashing, and Lord Ethereum gets taken out completely, getting the thirst. Now Sky, after getting the 1 more point, gonna keep on trying to fight for the high ground. Ooh, great clean edit onto Key Dog. Sky managing to get the victory for his team, and will be able to bring Tommy back to life. That's gonna be 6 elimination points for these 2 players.
Little bit nervy there, a little bit nervy. Tommy went down, of course. Things were looking a little bit nerve-wracking for this team. Of course, it's one of the teams that we have already identified as one of the better teams in the lobby, the ones that can really take those eliminations, take those fights early on. And for them, a little scare going into this, but they can now rotate in using the vehicles. Sky can just clean up that fight really effectively well. We see Riot and Flanksy right now on the screen. They picked up 2 eliminations already, using the splashes to heal themselves back up as well. They've got plenty of builds in the way to protect themselves going into this end game right now. They're just trying to get as much high ground as possible, as much of a vantage point just to identify any teams. And as that team we were talking about earlier, Sky, of course, rotating in just off the back of a fight now. Could we see another one brewing yet again? I think we do, as Riot looks to try and get some shots on, but he's not going to penetrate through that metal. That's not going to happen. As we see them now, this fight is happening. It's happening quickly. and who's going to come out on top.
Breaking them down already. Flanksy had to start rebuilding, and I think Riot is still in control of the high ground, but not for longer. As I say that, Itami, they didn't manage to heal back up fully after that previous skirmish, and it's still very low on HP, although they are managed to shield up now. We see Sky, beautiful peek, almost lasering Flanksy out of the server, just with 35 HP, having to pop the med, and one small shield, but no more shields for either of the players. As I see that, Riot gets shot in the back without a full build, and Flanksy has to disengage. No more escapes. This is the final shockwave grenade. Gets lasered on the way out. 55, only a med, and 49 builds. Can Flanksy survive the pursuit of Itami? And yes, Itami and Flanks are managing. Is that Flanks? Sorry, what's Itami's duo's name?
Sky. We got Sky.
Sky. Itami and Sky
Sky
decide to just chill out, get their first kill, and then they will pursue Flanksy, who's now in a very, very uncomfortable position.
Yeah, Itami and Fly, they're not giving up whatsoever, are they? They are keeping their foot firmly on the gas pedal, and they are not letting up at any point soon. We see Cheeto and David now. We saw Cheeto earlier, and David getting in a little bit of a sticky situation off spawn, but now they've picked up back to a duo now. This is good to see. We saw David, I believe it was, going down, and now this is one of those situations where they've managed to get the reboot off and pick up loot that gets them back afloat in the game, back into a good position. Hopefully for them, they can use all the loot that's in the Rave Cave to bolster their loot even more.
One of the elements we didn't talk about, the changes, the differences between competitive and public server, which is the game mode we are on right now, is the builds. You've got twice the amount of builds you can do if you farm properly.
Yeah, absolutely. Double the bills, double the fun, potentially, for these teams in the end game. We're going to see lots of those bills being used and plenty of opportunities for these teams to really show what they can do when it comes to the tarping and comes to the end game rotations. As we see right now, it's a little bit less bills for David. It's got 142 at the moment. Not quite the maximum, but here we go. We see another aggressive team making an aggressive play indeed. Envelopes and Latio right now, they're on top of this hill, but they are not safe whatsoever. 2 eliminations for Latio Spoon right now. They're able to get some crack damage onto Stiv right now, and that's a huge amount of damage with the goo gun, and gets the knock right there. It's Stiv that goes down. They've now flipped the fight completely. They were getting pushed, and now they're the ones pushing. The tables have turned. The flights have decided to all come all the way down, and there it is. Envelopes and Latio Spoon, they've decided to just fly on down and take them out.
Meanwhile, while we were witnessing this 2 versus 2, Sky managed to catch up with Flanks, the remaining solo from that duo they fought earlier, and managed to take him out. I think that's going to be Itami and Sky, or 8 or maybe 10 elims already, which is unbelievable so early in the game. But we were mentioning it earlier, Mini, about late game. Considering the pace of which this game is going, do you think we're going to see any surge issues for either teams later in the game?
Not at all. We shouldn't see any surge problems in this game so far. It looks as though the lobby's been very aggressive, so a lot of the teams that are pushing, like Sky and Asami that we see on the screen right now, they're just taking out as many players as they possibly can, so we shouldn't have any surge issues for these teams. The damage shouldn't be the problem. But for now, Luki has gone down. Cole's having to pick up the pieces. Itami's on the other side of the wall. If he knew it was Itami, potentially they wouldn't be pushing this, and there it is, 44 damage, or 44 HP now down to 4 Coles. This is where they have to back off and retreat and take the back foot in this fight, but I don't think they're going to be able to survive for too much longer, because with the wrath of Itami and Sky, he's not staying around too much longer.
Relentless pressure from Itami and Sky so far. Gets into their box. Coles gets taken out by Itami, and that is going to be elim number 10 for this duo. And we don't know what team they're playing for, but I think we might be looking at our position number 1 team right now, following Itami and Sky.
Yeah, you can see the mechanics are on point. You can see their rotations are on point as well. They're taking really, really smart fights. They're taking fights on the edge of zone, so it minimizes the risk of any sort of third parties, anyone that could be rotating in as well. As we see Cheeto and David right now. We saw them go down earlier off spawn, but they picked themselves back up, and now they're more than happy to rain down fire from the top of Chrome Jam right now. The snipes coming through as well, not quite connecting with them. What we see here as well with David is he's using actually 4 weapons. We see 6 minis as the only heals, which is interesting. I thought we'd see some teams maybe prioritizing some heals a little bit more, particularly since there's a lot of variety in the weapons that are going to be used, and some snipes that aren't quite hitting. Itami again in the feed, taking out yet another player.
And And their teammate as well, Itami with a double kill, guaranteeing 12 at least for his duo. As I say that, David and Cheeto, a lot of damage being dealt with the glue gun, and managed to get a long-range kill onto Legio Spoon. Very deep, and they're still pressuring Million. Million is isolated right there, but maybe if they manage to survive enough and get the card, maybe Cheeto and David might get pushed by the zone in over a couple of minutes.
Yeah, 10 seconds till the zone starts closing for Cheeto and David, so they're going to have to move quickly, but luckily for them, they do have the rotation, the mobility of the balloon right up above. You see the zip line there as well. Which will they opt to use? They're going to use the balloon. It's going to chunk for some 5 damage per tick, so they're going to have to make this quick and fast, as you can see them doing that right now, getting tagged about the air though, so David goes down to 1 HP. This is not a good situation for him, as he's now down to 34, 1 HP, literally. That is the end, and of course, it's Sky that takes him out. And oh, Sky is going on a rampage, quite literally, taking people out of the sky and all the way up in the sky in his box as well.
Pushing Haley. Kaylee alone, getting shot from the sky ground. Again, Itami and Sky in the ideal high ground position. I think they managed to get one more kill. Meanwhile, Marley skipping raw on top of the balloon edge zone with a great position. And I think Marley is one of our solos this first game.
Marley is our solo, but I tell you what, he's in the best position out of any player in the lobby. We talked about placement points being so valuable earlier, and Marley is about to get a huge number of placement points because they're just camping. They're just up on top of that balloon. They shouldn't have too much problem. I don't think any of the players in the lobby know that they're there. We see Itami again getting another elimination in the feed, as Sky will just continue to heal them both up using the splash cannon here, just using all of that chug to make sure that they can get themselves all the way up on the HP side of things. They're really smart about it. They're not just W keying, they're not just going crazy. They're also healing as much as they can, as well as Itami gets the finish onto Latio Spoon now. And I believe they're just going to keep going and going and going. The piece control comes through, the shot comes through, and there goes the second. Millen decides to try and fight a Sky, and that only ends one way.
The only millions that will be made this game seem to be by Sky and Itami, who, if they could, they would get millions of kills. They can only contend with just under 100 at this rate, but they look absolutely unstoppable.
Trying for success here in this later stage of the game. We see now they're the only duo alive. It's a 2v1v1. We know exactly where one of the players are, all the way up on the balloon. Envelope's deciding to go for the more traditional build options, but he can only build for so long as Itami decides to get up and involved, as Envelopes tries to use that goo gun, and I believe takes some damage himself. And there we go. The player from the balloon decides to hop on down. This is not a good situation for Sky now, who loses HP like this for the first time we've seen in almost the entire game. Sky, this could be a 2v1 situation, and it is. 2v1 situation. Sky stays alive. Marley is still alive as well, but only by a little amount.
Trying to contend with the two titans of this game one. Can Marley make anything happen? They don't seem to have any shield. Meanwhile, Itami and Sky popping the minis, popping the big shields, getting in full control. They don't want to let this game number one grasp out of their fingers, especially considering how many points they can get with a victory royale. Marley, meanwhile, manages to contest. He doesn't manage to get any damage. Sky jumps in their box, and the first victory for today will go to Sky and Itami and Mini. What a stellar performance from this duo.
That is absolutely world class. This duo have shown why they are on top. They are absolutely stellar. And what they've done there is just picked up, was that 18, 19 eliminations, potentially something along those lines? An unbelievable figure for the first game. And what better way to start?
Absolutely. We were complimenting, the 81 elims from 5 games. I think that's a 25% increase in just one victory royale without some players on the server, because we had a couple of solos. Absolutely outstanding. And Sky and Itami, they were in just a couple of, unsure positions throughout that game, but overall, they were in cruise control, and I am so scared to face them if I'm one of the teams dropping on them next map.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not, actually, because these guys are looking very, very dangerous at the moment, particularly Sky. I tell you what, Itami went down earlier on in the game, and Sky was just able to fend off the opponents. As we searched, we have a little look through the replays here. Chiz there going down at the beginning. We saw what happened at Greasy Grove, and this is what happens, though. Lots of different teams will be rotating in and third-partying, and this is what we see. A lot of teams that do come in, they either come out on top or they fall victim, and that's exactly what happened to Livesy and Luke right now. They just decided to rotate on into Greasy Grove, and unfortunately, didn't quite work out for them. And this is what happened earlier. Chico went down, of course, but David was able to pick up the revive, the reboot And that's exactly what we saw happen as 14. This is the fight we saw. This is one of the teams we expected to do a little bit better though, Waxton. They went down early.
Well, it's only so much you can do when you get pushed by Sky and Itami. More than that, we also had Abs and Mike. We saw another duo that we thought might perform really, really well going on into the later part of this game. But they got taken out off screen earlier in the series. So it will be interesting to go back on Abs and Mike and see how they can perform if they manage to survive that crucial rotation in the mid game. But yeah, just the great highlights. Oh, this is the fight we're talking about. Mike and Abs getting taken out by Riot and Flanksy. And it was Flanksy managed to get the first kill on Abs. Very, very good teams. Good play from most teams. But I think going into the game number 2, this is when, if I would be playing, I would have to change my tactic. What do I do to avoid facing the Titans? What do I do to, not run into these two players that are just gonna wipe the floor with me?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the game now, isn't it? How can you avoid the Titans in the lobby of Sky and Itami? I mean, we can see on display right now, the mechanics are incredible, the aim is incredible, everything about their gameplay is top notch at the moment, and it's all coming together. It's already on show. Game number 1, they're doing absolutely incredible. They're doing a great job. Can anyone else compete? We'll have to wait and see.
If there would be a duo that might compete, what duo would you choose to be the ones that maybe could surprise Itami and Sky?
David and Cheeto, I think. They're looking really, really strong, of course, at the Flutter Barn. We saw them fall a little bit earlier on, which might have set them back in the game, but it was just a bad rotation in that end game there. We saw them using the balloon to try and fly away. Didn't really work out. Of course, it was Sky and Itami who beamed them out of the air, but that was what it was. Ultimately, a bad rotation, one wrong move, and they get punished. So I think that team could be one to look out for the rest of the games.
Let's also talk about the second place from that game number 6 in Marley. Marley, solo. No duo for the first game. They will have a partner going into this game number 2. Managed to secure second place. So that is something that, well, if I'm one of the teams that got 3 to 40, I'm not pretty happy. I lost my second place to a solo. What am I going to do about that? And Marley must be feeling full of confidence. And, now with their duo hopefully on the server, they could be another opponent that might pose some threat to Itami and Sky.
Hats off to Marley. That was an incredible play. Using your resources, you don't just give up, all right? You're a solo. You don't give up. You think, what's the best way that I can get second? Because realistically, a solo is very unlikely to win the game. Of course, when you got a duo pushing you, as we saw at the end, it's never going to go that well. But you can maximize your placement points. We talked about it earlier. Placement points being so vital for these players and these duos. But if you're a solo, you just have to take what you can. And that's exactly what Marley did. Sat up on top of the balloon. He even had time to use a skipping rope, which I thought was great. Getting that exercise in, keeping himself occupied. I like that. That's good to see. And also picking up some great placement points as well. Nearly pulled off a miracle clutch right at the end, might I add, because he did get Sky down to 30 HP, something like that. So Sky was a little bit shivering for a sec, you could say. But no, of course, they clean up at the end. But Marley, great play.
I'm also looking at some of the results from last week, some of the ones that took place off screen, and we have the match number 4 being won by Riot and Flanksy. 2 of the players we saw get a couple of elims, but then were taken out in that fight, I think, at the edge zone, and 8 elims, 1 victory. That's what got them 38 points last week, so maybe Riot and Flanksy can do something else, but I think they were also very well put a lot in a precarious in a bad position, essentially, because of a bad rotation. But now, the game number 6 results are in, and let's take a look at the current standings. And woohoo, QB, you were right, Mini. 19 elims.
19 eliminations. What a start. 64 points on the board. That's a huge buffer between them and Solent Gamers. But they had a solid start as well. Solent Gamers picking up eliminations and the placement points as well. You can see the results of that as well. And I like this from Big Boys as well in 3rd place. You can see that 5 eliminations with 38 total points. Really proving to be a solid team to look out for. As we scroll down the rest of the leaderboard as well, we can see so many teams that maybe opted for higher eliminations. We see the Benji Fishies there in 16th place. They went for those higher eliminations. 5 eliminations for them, but they couldn't quite make it happen with the placement. And that's what we were talking about earlier. The balance is going to be so crucial. You can't just focus on eliminations if the placement starts slipping away and you start making silly mistakes.
Solid Gamers, that is Marley's team. So that was Marley on their own, getting 2 elims and obviously 2nd place for placement, which is amazing. But speaking of the Benji Fishes, 5 elims only got you 16th place. You have what is this, 5-6 teams with 0 elims that got more placement points than you did overall. And I think that's something that you look at the scoreboard and you gotta assess and change your tactic. You really want to place higher. I think this is going to be something we're going to see the teams understanding going to game 7 and 8, when they will be taking their time to just secure those very, very crucial points. But for now, we will be going on a quick break. The players will need a break. We will need a break. And after a quick reset, we will be back with game number 7 from the NSE Fortnite Grand Finals.
I know you're the color in the lines type. Never shake things up kind. Don't speak your own mind. I know you, everything has limits. Obey, don't ask questions. And you're the one trying to make me listen. My head was made for the clouds. Want me, come get me, I'm not coming down. Are you mad? I don't care. Don't understand? I don't care. I'm just here to pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop. I'm just here to pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop your bubble. I think you can control me, but you don't really know me, so I'm just here to pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop. I know you, dreams are way too risky. Scared of anything you find too tricky. Don't let me, I'm too witty. I know you, with your do's and do nots, trying to get me to stop, but you're in for a shock. My head was made for the clouds. Want me, come get me, I'm not coming down. Are you mad? I don't care. Don't understand? I don't care. I'm just here to pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop. I'm just here to pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop your bubble. I think you can control me, but you don't really know me, so I'm just here to pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop your bubble. I'm just here to pop your bubble. I'm just here to pop your bubble. You think you can control me, but you don't really know me, so I'm just here to pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop. I'd rather go to jail than live a life completely boring. I'd rather ask forgiveness than permission, cause it's funny. I think it's funny. I'm just here to pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop. I'm just here to pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop. You think you can control me, but you don't really know me, so I'm just here to pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop. I'm just here to pop your bubble. I'm just here to pop your bubble. I'm just gonna pop your bubble, baby. You think you can control me, but you don't really know me, so I'm just here to pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop your bubble, pop.
What if we got everything together, and wouldn't it be better then? Get more money, less anxiety, more passion, please. Wanna alter who I am. Get a little lost, can't find my way, but I can't stay here forever. Get a little low, to low my pace, till I can face it better. White knuckles on the way down.
We are back at the NSE British Esports Championships Grand Finals for Fortnite. I am Waxen and I'm joined by the fabulous Mini Miner for game number 7 of the Fortnite Grand Finals. Mini, before we went on break, we talked about the domination of Sky and Itami. QEB, the team to beat right now, but they are in prime position to secure the victory royale for this whole tournament. So
Yeah, they're proving good, aren't they? Realistically, they're all right. They're not bad.
they're not half bad. I think we could do better. We could do better. Come on.
I mean, that's brave. I don't know about that one.
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
neither do I. But yeah, I think at their current form, they are one victory royale away from winning this. And I might even say, even with a few top placements, I think they're still going to guarantee get the first place unless there is something or someone that can contest them and put a stop to their domination early on into the next few games.
Yeah, I'm backing Mali. I'm backing Mali to do that. You know, Mali and company, I think they can do it. You know, we saw it in game number 1 there. The genius play to use the balloon to get as many placements as possible. That sort of nous, that sort of expertise in the game, the knowledge about how to play, even when you're only a solo, is going to prove to be so important. And for QUB gamers, it's not actually over yet. This is not the end, right? We have still 5 or 4 more games to go. We have so much action ahead of us. So it's not quite said and done yet. Although they are in a very, very solid position, I think there could be some upsets still.
Yeah, there's plenty of space for upsets, and that game finished quite early. I think we got to, Zone 4? Maybe even we hit Zone 5 right before it finished, and I want to ask you, why do you think the aggression from some of the teams that, again, are not QEB?
Yeah, so we saw obviously QUB just going absolutely crazy on the eliminations, and I think when you see that going on in the feed, you think, actually, you know what, this is one of those games where we can be a little bit more aggressive. We see the feed lighting up on the left-hand side of the screen. We can see that a lot of players are going down. We don't need to necessarily focus as much on placement if we are a little bit more elimination focused. If we're a little bit more confident in our abilities, let's try and go for some eliminations. Let's try and pick up some points, because that's really the only way they're going to be able to catch them. They've got to combine these elimination points with the placements as well. But of course, because they're getting so many eliminations, it's free placement for the rest of the lobbies. So maybe you don't go for eliminations. Maybe you do just think, actually, if QUB are just going to go and do all that, I'm just going to sit on a balloon, for example, and just chill, enjoy all the placement points coming in, capture a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, even a 5th would be good. And I think for these teams that are a little bit less confident in the fighting, that's going to be the strategy for them.
For those at home that might be a bit unfamiliar or maybe not as experienced with Fortnite and rotations and mobility utility more in game, obviously Fortnite has grown and developed so much over the last few years, and on the public server right now, we saw a couple of maybe unsuccessful usage of such said mobility. We saw the first blood of the first game being a player just flying in a tornado, and they got lasered from the sky. And we saw a questionable rotation with a hot air balloon that made a duo that was in prime position, high ground, lose their life and the chances. And then I think we also had a mid-game skirmish with a couple of not very well used grenades to push yourself away, disengage from the fight, and you got shot in the back. So for those of us at home, or for those like me that maybe aren't as proficient with using the utility to rotate, what is one way you think the mobility utility in game, that's a long sentence, has changed Fortnite over the last few seasons?
Yeah, it's huge changes, right? Okay, in the competitive format, we don't usually have that many sort of mobility items. We have a very limited pool of mobility items. We have launch pads, we have the chrome splashes, but we don't have shockwaves. We don't necessarily have the vehicles as well. But I think the most important thing for these teams, and for anyone that's playing Fortnite at any level, is just awareness. Looking around, thinking, okay, is there a team there? Can we use this? What are the risks of using this rotation item? Because it always carries some risks. If you're just flying out in the air, you can't shoot back, you can't build. If you're on a vehicle, you're sitting duck almost for some of the shots, some of the teams that are going to be looking at you. So it's all about awareness. It's all about knowing where the risk could potentially come from. And as we saw at the end right there, we saw David and company using the balloon as a rotation device. They maybe should have looked out a little bit further, thinking, actually, there's a couple of teams over there, there's a couple of teams on that side as well. If we use this, we're going to be just out in the open, flying in front of the whole lobby, and we're going to be prime targets to be hit. And unfortunately, that's exactly what happens. So for these teams, just about awareness, looking out and seeing where will the players be looking at me? Will there be potential drama, potential upsets for our rotation, or are we free to go? That's going to be most important.
One of the tactics I was surprised not to see any of the teams deploy, especially with the current patch and the current style of playing the game, is tanking more of the storm, especially when we have so many heals. Especially on the pop, there's more heals, med mist all over the place, splashes. I think that would be a great way of avoiding, the teams that are at the forefront, the teams that like being in the middle of the zone, being there first, taking the high ground and lasering everybody away. I was expecting some teams to not camp the storm, but just be in the storm, get that loot in, and gather up those points.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see a few little teams that are going to be inside of the storm, potentially just, camping in there for a little while, using the heals, as you mentioned, trying to get in there and, avoid as many fights as possible. But I think for the teams that want to try and avoid that, they want to be trying to save the heals, right? You want to be making sure that you're in a good position, but away from everyone as well. You don't necessarily want to be too much in the zone because you're expending those medmists, you're expending those chug splashes to keep yourself alive. But if they're on the less congested side of zone where the least amount of players are, they'll find success either way.
Well, we will have to wait a little longer to see what the teams in our lobby will have in play coming for the next game, as we have a couple of connection issues with some of the players. The lobby will be remade, and we will be back after another short break.
Good morning, crack student gamers, and welcome to the British University Esports Championship Spring 2022. It's been a long time coming, and we're now live from Insomnia. We're back bigger than ever. We have so much going on here.
It's a place for all competitive gamers to come along. Even if you're not amazing, you can still take part, which is really nice, and you meet so many different students from different unis. It's just really nice, like a fun place to be.
And the NSE, by being at Insomnia, is really amazing. Especially a small, isolated university like Oxford, it's great to meet other students who are into esports.
So we've got a spectator area where the student communities come and they're meeting up for the first time in probably 2 years, getting to watch the finals, and then we've also got the teams on stage playing against each other. And then also we've got a student LAN as well, as kind of like a mini LAN in a wider bring your own computer over the weekend. Super grateful for our sponsors. Our headline partner is Intel. We're also partnered with Barclays, Monster Energy, providing loads of Monster Energy to keep everyone fueled over the weekend. PT Specialist, Special Effects, and we're also partnered with Bucks as well.
Everyone in the university scene is so welcoming and so lovely. You don't see people like this anywhere else, like in a community together. And it's just all about creating those connections with different people, and it's just really amazing.
Losing my cool, breaking my rules. I don't usually get so out of my head, walking the edge. What am I falling into? Out here again, where do we land? Tell me, is it too soon? Losing my cool, breaking my rules. I'm going crazy over you. I know you say you're not afraid to dive into something. You got nothing to lose, but I'm not that way. Taking my sweet time, don't wanna be the one to cry. But I'm losing my cool, breaking my rules. I don't usually get so out of my head, walking the edge. What am I falling into? Out here again, where do we land? Tell me, is it too soon? Losing my cool, breaking my rules. I'm going crazy over you. My hands, they shake when you walk into the room, and I can't think straight. There's no one like you, but I wanna chase this feeling with you. Don't walk away from this tonight. I'm going with you. Losing my cool, breaking my rules. I don't usually get so out of my head, walking the edge. What am I falling into? Losing my cool, breaking my rules. I don't usually get so out of my head, walking the edge. What am I falling into? Out here again, where do we land? Tell me, is it too
And we are back at the NSE British Esports Championship Grand Finals for the best game there is, for Fortnite. I'm Waxen, joined by Mini Miner, and we are here to tell you all about what we can expect from this game number 2 of today.
Yeah, this is it. Game number 2, of course. Game number 1 was not short of excitement. We had some crazy plays going on from different sort of teams. We saw teams that go for high eliminations. We saw teams play a little bit slower, a little bit more placement heavy, a little bit more placement focused. And we also saw some teams that were coming out on top that maybe we weren't expecting to in those sort of mid-game engagements as well. I'm excited to see which teams can either continue on that upward trend or maybe pick up from where they left off, where they were a little bit lower down on that first game. I'm just excited to see if maybe we can see a comeback from one of the teams. Of course, we have the team all the way up on top that's just dominating, but who else can, have a say today?
Yeah, I'm more than excited to see what we can expect from the teams now. But before we went into game number 1, we were very keen and very interested to see if any of the duos might opt to play with some of the unconventional weapons, some of the weaponry that we don't find in the competitive pool. And I reckon we didn't see as much of that as we were expecting.
Yeah, we had a few. We saw maybe the pulse rifle that was brought back today. We saw the goo gun, of course, being used so effectively well by some of the teams. That's definitely not in the traditional competitive mode. So that's an item that maybe we wouldn't usually expect to see, but being put to good use. And this is what we were talking about earlier, adaptability. Teams that maybe aren't so used to playing in this sort of public game mode setting, they're able to pick up on some of the things that they aren't used to and put them to good use, sort of implement them in a sort of Frankenstein way into their competitive format. It's like, let's just put the goo gun on them and see what happens, and it pays off. We saw it right at the end. One of the teams, I think it was David's team, just coming out with so many eliminations using the goo gun all the way up on high ground, and that is exactly what this goo gun is all about. If you can use the high ground well, that's where it's going to come out on top.
Yeah, and having that high ground advantage is always such an important thing. It has always been, for the most part, since the beginning of a competitive Fortnite, contesting and playing for a high ground has always been the most important thing you could do. But we don't have to wait any longer to find out which team is going to come out on top, because game number 2 is now underway, Mini.
This is it, game number 2, the time for maybe some new storylines to develop, or shall we continue to see the absolute domination from the team on top? Those are the questions that we'll be getting answers to in just a few moments, and the question of where teams are going to land is being answered right on display right now. We didn't see anyone going to Shiny Sound in the previous game, but now that's changed, as we see a team just landing on the house to the west side of that POI. We see no one Rave Cave, no one Chrome Jam either, so definitely a more south-heavy side of the map that people are sort of opting for and prioritizing here. No one at Chrome Crossroads either, right in the center of the map. I believe there's one team at Tilted Towers, so huge amount of loot that they'll be able to capitalize on. We see Cool right now just going fishing, maybe picking up some fishing rods, maybe some harpoons in there as well, opting for maybe a different game. Is this Fishing Simulator or is this Fortnite?
I might as well be Fishing Simulator because, Cool all on their lonesome with Tannis still flying in. I think they're just about to land by their side. Meanwhile, in the kill feed, Dota getting a kill, and I think Cool, is that his teammate, or they're getting pushed by someone behind their desk? That is their teammate. Getting a couple of early splashes, quite good loot already for these. Well, not necessarily guns-wise and ammo, but a lot of shields and a flopper already for Cool. A lot of fishing spots in this area, but we're mentioning no one dropping in Chrome Jam, which was one of the POIs with lots of contests happening in the first game.
Yeah, it really was one of those sort of power POIs. Maybe that's what's turned a few of these teams off. It's decided that, maybe we don't want to be contesting people at that drop, and everyone's thought the same. So they've all landed somewhere different. As for Shiny Sound, there we see Kaylee and Chiz right now. They're all the way up here, capitalizing on this loot from the south side. There is a team to the west that they have to look out for. So do they know that they're there? Have they been aware enough to notice that that team is in the vicinity? We shall see. This is really where we start to identify teams. We start to define who is the more aggressive teams, who are going to be the teams that are going to be playing a little bit more placement heavy, who's going to be less aggressive. This is really where we start to see those stories forming in game number 2 here. It's Kaylee just looting up as much as they can, enjoying all the loot that is on offer down here at Shiny Sound. We don't see the elimination feed lighting up too much here, so will we see some action starting as we do as Ashley takes out Wandy right there in the feed once more. And Kaylee's just enjoying all the loot here, picking up 2 assault rifles potentially. Maybe just thinking, you know what, we gotta have a shotgun here at some point, but no, maybe not. I was just saying, they need a shotgun, but no. New strategies evolving all the time.
Maybe taking one and gonna drop in them later, maybe for their teammate. Not entirely sure what's happening, but there are 3 duos right here currently in Shiny Sound, or 2 duos and a solo. Maybe one of the players already gotten taken out early. Kaylee, very interesting, with a lightsaber in their backpack already.
Yeah, definitely. This is what we were talking about earlier. This is where the public game mode does come into its own, because this is not the typical weapons that we would see in the competitive side of the game. But how well can they put them to use? This is going to, almost level the playing field a little bit more than what we're used to with competitive. In the sense that some of the players that haven't got as much experience, there we go, there's a shotgun. Some of the players that haven't got the experience can maybe fight back. Those lightsabers that we saw in the inventory, that's going to really fend off against some of the more traditional loot. You see Roehampton right now, and Mike deciding to open up this vault and all the loot that's inside.
That's gonna be a great start for Abs and Mike, but we saw a similar start from these two last game, and they were taken out on a late rotate mid-game from the other duo in Rocky. So let's see if Mike and Abs are gonna be able to take all they need and just disengage quickly before they will get pushed by their opponents, as we see another duo appearing on the radar in Flutter Barn. They are right now between 2 duos, one in Rocky and Flutter, but can we expect either rotation to come from any of the duos there, or do you think this vault will be uncontested and the rotation will be free?
I think their rotation will be free. I think it's just more about what are they going to do. Are they going to rotate down to Flutterbarn and take the fight? And it looks as though they might be doing that. The zone's close by. They can afford to do so. And of course, David and Cheeto, they're just lurking nearby. They fought here before. They'll have to fight here again. They'll have to own the POI. The domain that they've tried to claim so far has been somewhat successful. Can ABZ and Mike get involved and get some eliminations early on, as they tried to do in the previous game? We saw them taking out 1, but not 2, as Mike gets in the box, but now gets in a sticky situation, has to fend off against David, who does get some shots connected. They're both down to weak HP. There goes Mike in the feed as well, and now ABZ just has to try and pick up the pieces as David and Chiso take out 1.
Abs again taking control of Volt early, now alone in a 1 versus 2. Shotgun in hand and 40 bills. Can Abs make anything happen? Gets tagged onto, I think both of them actually got tagged up with David with no shield. Abs being the aggressor right now. Getting the card, I think. No, they didn't manage to get the card. No, they didn't. And Abs has to disengage, going back all the way down, trying to get shot in the back. Gets tagged once just by the opponents in Flutter, but Abs will be managing to get away quite safely. And Rocky, maybe a reboot? No, did he get the card or no? I'm not entirely sure.
I think he did, he's just picked up the reboot card, picking up the reboot there as well, and we see what happened in game number 1, but the reverse. We saw a reboot coming off from David in game number 1, now we're seeing it from Abs in game number 2, so it looks as though David and Cheeto have come out on top in this fight. This is where they're going to have to make the decision. Abs and Mike, are they going to rotate back into Flutterbarn, or will they just have to count their chickens and say, you know what, this is the loot we have, we're not going to go in there and risk going down again? I think they just have to, this is where they have to focus on the rotate. They've tried the fight once. Are they going to try it again? I doubt it. We shall see.
Yeah, I don't think they will. You don't want to, get the vault loot and just give it away to your number 1 opponent. And it's almost what happened here. But managing to disengage, just losing 1 elimination point, and now they will have all the time in the world to refarm and get ready back for the mid-game rotations. Meanwhile, we are looking at Lord Elorium and Keydog, another duo we took a quick look at earlier last round, but this time they are in Shiny and they don't have to rotate anywhere, as they are pretty comfortable pretty much in the middle of the zone.
Yeah, they're pretty comfortable here. They have the entire drop spots themselves. All that loot can be claimed for them, which is nice. We can just see them enjoying all of that right now. Do they know that they're alone here? I don't think so, because they're being a little bit more careful, a little bit more cautious with the way that they approach this building, looking to ensure that they don't get jumped up on by one of the other players that could be lurking nearby. But of course, we know that they're safe and sound, quite literally in Shiny Sound here, and just enjoying all of the loot that they can have, all of those materials that they need to farm up as well, because as we saw, a lot of the teams that did have those higher material counts, they're able to take the high ground a little bit earlier on in the end game, and that's really what set them apart. And we can see the next zone revealing itself. They're going to have to rotate south, so this is where they're going to have to switch up from the safety of the sound and rotate to a different POI.
You did mention this, but the kill feed seems to have calmed down, especially compared to the game number 1. As I say that, Latio Spoon gets a kill onto Kaylee across the map yet again. You know, the caster's curse, but still way less elims. I think at this point, the last game, Zone 2, we were already looking at 25, maybe below 25 players still on the server, now up at 33. Only 9 players losing their life, and maybe still plenty of reboot cards to be used.
Here we go, though, with the power positions. Cheeto and David, they have this position on lock. And unfortunately for them, the zone is not friendly to them. They do have the ability to rotate in as easily as they'd like. They're eyeing up a little bit of a snipe here, as we saw David being quite effective with the snipes earlier, but that leaves you exposed to a potential tag from another team, and that's what exactly happens to David right now. He's going to have to expend some of those mini shields, expend them down to only 1 left. As for the first time in the game, we see Itami in the feed picking up an elimination. That's huge for that team. They have to be careful with this mini. Yep. Okay, they don't want to make that fall down off that balloon, because it is very, very high up there, and if you fall, there's only one way you're going, and that's in the feed.
Oh, getting pushed by Abs. Is he aware that David and Cheeto are here? I don't think Abs was aware. He was just taking a quick fight, wanting to take the high ground position, spotting 2 opponents, and be like, no, you know what? I'm good. You guys can have this balloon. I'll just keep rotating. As I say that, no, Abs and Mike decide against it, and they're going to try to contest. Abs gets tagged a bit and quite low in shields. Mike finally says, okay, we had enough of this. We're just going to try to get away with our lives. We're in zone. We're fine. But Cheeto and Abs, they were trying to be quite, Cheeto and David were trying to be quite sneaky. Even now, David trying to double snipe. Misses. That's quite an easy shot. Now, finally breaking the shields. David, can they get one more tag onto that solo player? Meanwhile, Riot gets a kill onto Humble.
Yep, huge tags here from David using that legendary sniper. Now, this has actually just been removed from the competitive playlist as well, so this is not something that we'll be seeing in the traditional tournaments, but in here, this is where you can use this high ground to your advantage, using that sniper with all of that ammo that you can have inside of it, just to rain down fire on the opponents. Unfortunately for players like Livesey, they're just going to have to keep rotating and being extra cautious as they do, as there's fire raining down from above. They need umbrellas, they need safety, and the safety right now for Livesey is the tree. Is it going to provide too much cover? I'm not too sure, as Luke is trailing behind just a tad. I think the launch pad's going to have to be used here, but this could pose a big risk for Liv, as now I don't think they know that there's a team all the way up on top. This could result in their elimination if they're not careful, but I think they're okay. I think David and Cheeto have rotated away. I got a little bit nervous for Livesey there for a sec, because I don't think they knew that there was a team lurking up there, but David and Cheeto, they've rotated in.
We must commend the early rotation from David and Cheeto, learning from their mistakes. Like we said, they lost their chance at the first game because of a late rotate, and they don't want to have to go through that again. Early rotating, despite, not getting a kill on Liv right here. But, 1 elim point doesn't mean anything when every placement point is almost 3 times that amount.
Yeah, it's absolutely fine. They're not bothered by that at all. Positioning trumps eliminations, as we saw in game number 1. We're seeing Sky once again proving me wrong, almost getting so many in the feed already. That's a duo taken out yet again for that power duo, as Luke just lurking behind. We saw Livesey leading the rotations. Maybe they're taking on the more IGL, the in-game leader role of this duo, this dynamic duo that are being pretty good so far. They've been really, really solid with their rotations. Their loot's looking solid as well, and Luke just potentially lining up an elimination onto Mike. This is an interesting decision, of course. Livesey not close by. They want to have to reconvene at some point, get together, get in the same box, and prioritize positioning. We can see, once again, the tornado inside of the map, and a beautiful drone shot we can see to highlight that, and there it is. Abs using the tornado, and Mike as well, just to try and rotate in. Down below, down on the ground, we see Luke, again, eyeing up as many snipes as possible. He's not quite connecting with any yet, and this could be the one, but no, just misses.
That was such a close call from Luke, almost getting the head off Lord DeLorean, but lol, this is not a good rotate. You're going towards Itami and Sky, and as I said, Sky takes out Keydog, and it's now going to be a skirmish where Elorium is essentially just running away for their lives. Sky is shooting them in the back, but Itami and Sky are now going to be exposed, I think, between 3 duos. Let's see if they can put the pressure onto them. Yes! And Sky just jumps in the box, and the kill feed just says, Twitter, Sky, I will win, and there are.
Yeah, it's been saying that quite a lot today, hasn't it? Sky's definitely been in there once or twice, and we see Luke unfortunately falling victim to that. Livsy's going to have to try and pick up pieces of that duo, as we see Hype Eiley right now just enjoying, or Hype Eli, I guess would be it, was looking to pick up some loot. And this is what I was talking about earlier. The teams that aren't necessarily tanking the zone, tanking the storm damage, but they are on that less congested side of zone. You can see on the minimap in the bottom right of your screen, there's no other little player triangles. There's no one nearby. There's no one to bother them. They've made this rotation absolutely perfectly. You can see the lack of eliminations. It's not going to be too great for their points, but as we mentioned earlier, those placement points are going to be so much more valuable than eliminations, and we can see that in full force right now. It's going to be a water zone, though. For those that know the map, the east side of the zone is, or the east side of the map is definitely where the water will be definitely most common. And will we see a lot of swimming in this zone? We'll see a lot of building, a lot of launch pads potentially as well. This is really where these teams have to answer the water problems.
Swimming does great for your heart, and I think some of these players might be way too nervous, especially after, having to face up against Itami and Sky. You might have some heart problems. You want to go swimming. You want to feel better about yourself. But it's so unfortunate for Shadow and Hype right now. They will be slowly rotating into zone, not aware. Obviously, they can't see the radar the same way we can. They are afraid they might get shot in the back or from the left, right, center, from everywhere. Although, it could be just a free rotate. Meanwhile, we are going back to Flanksy and Riot spamming away at some poor players trying to rotate through the water zone back in the circle. Ooh. I think that's going to be very, very difficult. As we're watching all this action, Sky gets another double kill.
Yeah, more eliminations for Sky. Of course, Itami there getting cracked by the sniper of Riot. And there it is. That's a beautiful play from Riot and Flanksy. I don't know if you guys saw that at home. That was a beautiful play because they were able to spray the wall and then snipe as the wall was breaking. Huge props to this team who were able to get huge amount of damage onto the other player there. That is chemistry personified. We can see that in action, in full force. This team know how to play.
Look at the next zone. This is going to be proving to be very difficult for some of them as I say that. Look at Mike. Mike can get shot in the air, but no, Riot doesn't manage to get any clean shots onto Mike. And this is going to be very difficult as Riot and Flanksy have a good angle to catch up the three teams that are behind him trying to rotate. But are they going to decide to try to get some early damage points or no? Yes, they are. Sniper in hand, missing the first shot. Paroxy just getting away slightly from Riot's bullets, and they will be making it to zone safely.
That is a brave move, using the sniper on a player that's hovering out of the sky. But now what that means, of course, that's cleared the path. That's paved the way for Riot and Flanksy to decide to use the rotation themselves. This is what we saw earlier, though. Teams using this a little bit too, frivolously, if you like. Not being a little bit, not being careful with how they use it. Could result in their elimination, but right now they get away with it as Riot and Flanksy get in a really, really solid position to look back at this fight, getting some huge damage off onto one of the other players. But unfortunately, that elimination slips through their fingers as Shadow Diamond does go down. They've left their teammate as a solo. Oxy and Alexa, they're now trying to apply the pressure, but they're getting the pressure applied to them as well. As I say that on the right side of the screen, Livesy, though, sat inside of that house as a solo, as we know, just getting those placement points.
Oxy about to throw in some shenanigans. It's getting on spot. Meanwhile, Sky gets another spot. A Rhinosaur just falls from the sky. Doesn't manage to break anyone's head as Sky gets the kill into Latios from Itami, killing the duo. Envelopes is out of the server. Meanwhile, Flanksy keeps on spamming. He knows that Oxy and Alexa are both in that box, and they are putting on so much pressure onto that duo.
The Junk Rift coming through is another one of those items that we don't expect to see because it's not competitive. This is the mode in pubs. This is an item that we do get to see courtesy of playing inside this pubs mode, and this is what makes it really, really exciting to watch. Those Junk Rifts, it enables you to throw it at a team, and then some random piece of junk will fall from the sky and do over 200 damage to the poor victims down below. So that's what we see Flanksy doing right there, just trying to take out the opposing players in that other box. Across from them, we see Itami and Sky just looking to pounce on their next prey. Of course, now this is where the junk risks come through. A lot of teams cottoning onto the fact that they're quite powerful when used in conjunction with one another, and that's what's caused all this mess from Flanksy and Riot. They're just having to get away as soon as possible, using the shockwave to escape, a last-ditch attempt to get away. And I think Flanksy just has to say, you know what, Riot, sorry, mate, but I'm going to have to leave you.
Riot still trying to make their way, but I don't think they'll be able to. As I say that, they're popping some minis, and I think that means Riot is in a safe spot for now. But look at their radar. There's a duo in Edge North, and I think they're not going to be able to make the rotation in. As we said, at Flanksy, it's a couple tags on him. Abs gets the kill onto Leavesy. Flanksy gets spammed by a couple of people in the lobby, and I think this is going to be a very, very tough position for Flanksy as they are trying to hold the walls, but the builds are going down. Flanksy with only 380 wood and no brick and metal.
Yeah, this is a nightmare situation for Flanksy right now, only in those softer materials of the wood, as Riot, his teammate, does fall down, so Flanksy's having to pick up the pieces himself, and unfortunately the pieces are made of wood, and that's not going to be quite enough for him to keep that cover, keep that protection, whilst the rest of the lobby has their eyes fixated on that side of the map. We see Mike and Abs just inside of that building that Livesey once was in, and Marley, again, as a solo. Can they do it once more? We see the incredible plays in game number 1 as Itami picks up yet another elimination. Marley knows how to get placement points though, Wax, and can he do it again?
I think he can. And look, he was sniping away at Sky and Itami. Like, that's not a duo you see most people trying to contestants or even throw sniper bullets at. But Marley is not afraid. Marley knows I don't want to end up being in a 1 versus 2 against those two players, so I might as well try to, you know, take out some of their utility. As I say that, Marley gets sniped out of the server, and I think it was none other than Itami. As I said, you don't want to contest them. Marley maybe just overconfident there. Itami takes them out, and that's Sky. Itami, yet again, with 13 elims.
That is such a huge figure, and what that gives them right now is it gives them that power position of the high ground that Marley was once in. This castle was once home to the King Marley, but unfortunately for him, they've fallen. It's Itami and Sky's castle now. They are now the players in the prime position. They have the win condition of high ground. Can they use it effectively as Cheeto goes down to very, very low HP? We see Sky and Itami just sniffing out any more potential battles. There's blood in the water. They can smell it, and almost quite literally there's players going down left, right, and center. Alexa and their teammate now resulting in some big fire putting onto their box, and Sky's just not giving up the pressure. What I really like about how the way Sky's playing this, though, he's playing it very, very passively almost. They're not just going straight in the box. They're not just jumping in, taking huge risks. And I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing them being a little bit more passive, a little bit more outside of the box gameplay. And this is why they're such a good team of being so aggressive, because they're being aggressive when you least expect it. When they're in a good position, they're not chilling, they're not sat there. They're just trying to keep applying the pressure. Cheeto and David, they're feeling it right now.
Meanwhile, Sky gets another kill onto Luki, Axe getting a kill onto Coleslaw, and Sky just getting all these, you know, all these bullets spraying down, taking David out. Alexa managed to get that kill, and it will be another duo on the low ground. I think it is going to be David and Flanksy all by themselves. As I say that, Oxy gets a kill onto David, and I think we are only looking at a couple, three duos and 1 solo going into this last Zone 7. Flanksy
make that 6 teams.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
That's Flanksy. Yeah, Flanksy goes down.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, there it is. We see Flanksy just falling to, of course, the hands of Sky and Itami. We've seen them do it once. We can see them do it again and again and again. And that's 14 to add to their huge number of eliminations so far. But for some of the rest of the teams that are looking pretty solid right now, we see Shattered Diamond, their teammate, looking in a pretty solid position. Plenty of heals to look for, as well as we see Mike taking out Cheeto in the feed. Itami getting the piece control, getting the damage as well to go along with it. As they pick up another elimination, it's Oxy who goes down, and they can pick up 2. It's Alexa and Oxy that go down. There's the 16th elimination for this duo. They are on a barnstorming run.
They need 4 more to break their previous record of 19 from game 1 of this grand final. Can they do it? It's going to be very hard, as they would have to get pretty much almost all the kills. But we're looking right now at Axo, just in a 1 versus 2. Versus 2. Can he make anything happen? Lots of great team building and trying to stay alive. You are fighting for every placement point. We've talked about how important those are. You don't want to lose your life early. Every single moment that passes, you can survive and get your team closer to that top 5.
That's the most important point, isn't it? Getting into that top 5 placement. All these teams are right now. They're looking pretty solid, as Itami and Sky, they're on 16 eliminations. They're wanting to add to that, but they're not wanting to, you know, risk their victory royale as a result. As Shadow Diamond does fall inside of the shadows of the storm, and it is now I believe it's a 2v2v1, so Itami and Sky, they're in the prime position all the way up on high ground as they're able to spray down the damage, spray down the pressure, the unrelenting pressure onto the rest of the lobby. This player just cannot handle it. There's no way they can, as Itami now gets stuck in the storm. Could this result in his elimination? Potentially, as Itami does manage to use the Chug Splash just to keep them alive for a little bit longer. Now 14 has the high ground. It's a 2v1, Waxon.
Managed to shockwave him away. And Itami lose life. Oh my god, what a headshot! Axe, you just gotta stay alive. Itami can drive to the storm. No more heals. Getting shot down. Still alive. Axe 1v1. And Sky says, no, this is my domain.
14 Axe, I tell you what, the valiant effort in an attempt to win the game on high ground as a solo. It nearly happened. Itami was down. He got Itami down. Unfortunately, though, for 14, Sky was there to clean up, as they always are. But what a valiant effort. What an interesting high ground retake as well. And that's what we were talking about. You got to be careful. Even though you're up on top, you're not guaranteed it.
Of course not. But instead, we got to commend 14 or Axe, or 14 Axe, the way we want to say their name. But such a strong performance. I think they were at one point the only solo versus 4 duos and managing to battle it out. Just not able to clutch that final 1v1, but almost made it possible. We almost believed that a solo can clutch it against the Titans. Itami and Sky almost losing control of that game, but Sky, the safe pair of hands of the duo, bringing yet another victory royale for QEB.
Yeah, huge victory royale for them. I mean, 14 using the shockwaves as well. What a play that was. But what I really like about the way that Itami played that, of course, 14 was chucking the shockwaves down. He threw them all the way down, and then Itami was shockwaving into the storm. But what he did really, really well, Itami, he didn't just give up. He didn't think, okay, I'm in the storm, I'm going out. He got his sniper out and did a huge amount of damage onto 14, who was now in the solo, in the zone with, of course, Sky. Now, it was a 1v1 between Sky, but Itami hitting a huge snipe to just chunk the damage off of 14, who maybe Sky would have won anyway, realistically. You know, we know how good Sky can be, but it just gave Sky a little bit of a helping hand.
Yeah, more clearly, Itami and not losing their control, and we talked about how these players are going to respond, you know, with playing on stream. They are just a couple of games away from being the grand champions of the NSE Winter Cup, so maybe they might have crumbled under pressure, but that was not the case for Itami. Got shockwave into the storm, turned around, just dinked, crack, and essentially securing the victory for Sky without leaving any room for error for 14. That we said did great in that last game, in a late game story, but we know that there's a team, or at least a player, that can challenge them, and I really want to see more of that going into the next game. But now, how many victory royales, how many elims we've seen from these two players? I know probably people at home are already tired. Stop talking about Sky, stop talking about Itami, but we cannot. They are on a completely different level today, and they are in a form that we have not seen anyone else being able to replicate so far.
Yeah, what I really like about the way they're playing it as well is they're not just going crazy, all guns blazing, jumping in boxes, splitting up, going for 1 versus 2s on their own. It's not playing out like that. They're being really, really smart. They're W-keying, they're being aggressive, but they're also playing it really, really effectively and really, really smart, really, really calm and control, which is what I really, really like to see. We saw that, of course, Marley being all the way up on the high ground. We saw it in that end game, and I think it was Itami hitting a huge headshot snipe, which then allowed them to push up into that high ground position. They didn't just crank up to high ground. They didn't just try and claim it for themselves, which is a really risky play. They took out the team that was on high ground and then ended up taking it for themselves. So really, really calm, really, really mature way of playing for this team, and I like it so far.
I'm glad you mentioned the headshot snipe, because we were POVing Marley and we were commending the confidence that Marley displayed. You know, a solo shooting away the champs, and unfortunately not able to do anything. You know, we were kind of like, oh yeah, there's good confidence. Yeah, you know, show the you know, the best team that you're not afraid of them. And then Tommy said, tone it down. I'm in charge with a headshot snipe. And yeah, unbelievable performance from these two players. But I am so happy that we saw a change of pace in the lobby from the game number 1. We got to really, really later on. We saw a lot of moving zones. I think we got to the zone 8, I think. And it was really, really hard fought. And we'll see what the teams will deploy for the next game after a short break.
Try to get some money for some stuff that I need. Swear the ATM machine was laughing at me. Your girl, been running on empty. But I don't let it affect me. There are days that I consider moving back home. But every day I do, my gut keeps telling me no. Your girl, been running on daydreams. But that's just how my brain be. I don't need your doubt, nope, I don't need your doubt. Hey, just chill, I got all the time to kill. Yeah, I got good vibes, good vibes. I'm too blessed to give in to any stress. It's only good vibes, good vibes. So when I can't pay the rent, I got nothing in my fridge. Got no doubt, yeah, things always turn around. Yeah, I got good vibes, good vibes. Trying to get my mattress back, they stole it from me. From the suburbs, but I fake like I'm from the streets. Yo, girl, staying pretty busy. Learning how to city. Life is way too short to get caught up in that mess. All I wanna do is get drunk on happiness. Yo, girl, love's a silver lining. Don't at me cause I'm smiling. I don't need your doubt, nope, I don't need your doubt. Hey, just chill, I got all the time to kill. Yeah, I got good vibes, good vibes. I'm too blessed to give in to any stress. It's only good vibes, good vibes. So when I can't pay the rent, I got nothing in my fridge. Got no doubt, yeah, things always turn around. Yeah, I got good vibes, good vibes. Sing it with me, every little thing is gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. Sing it with me, every little thing is gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay. Rip a page out of the book of life from Sir Bon Jovi and just take a second, take a breath. Don't worry, just be happy. All that you got is a day, don't got a second to waste. You have permission to listen to the brain you've been given. Now you got a future to take. Yep. Ooh, you ain't failing if you're trying, and ooh, gotta believe the future's brighter. You owe it to yourself to do what only brings you joy. So shut up all that noise. Yep, shut up all that noise. Hey, just chill, I got all the time to kill. Yeah, I got good vibes, good vibes. I'm too blessed to give in to any stress. It's only good vibes, good vibes. So when I can't pay the rent, I got nothing in my fridge. Got no doubt, yeah, things always turn around. Yeah, I got good vibes, good vibes. Sing it with me, every little thing is gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay.
Back at the NSE Winter Cup with a post-match analysis for game number 7. Mini, we were just in the middle of talking the results and what we saw from QEB, yet again a stellar performance, but this time, as we can see right now on your screen, only 18 elims.
It's poor from them, honestly. I expect 20. It's not good enough for it, is it? Let's be honest. 18 eliminations. How are they so good? It's unbelievable. 63 points total, yet again in the 60s for this team. How do they do it? I don't understand. But we do know how they do it because they're very mechanically skilled. They're very smart about how they do it. And they are just very, very... They have a very good game sense, and that's what we're seeing right now. But for some of the other teams, the Bendy Fishies, of course, we saw them in game number 1 getting some high eliminations, but they didn't quite combine it with the placement. Look what they've done. They've done just that. They've got eliminations, and they've got the placement. They're fixing problems, which is what we like to see.
Yeah, they're listening to Coach Mini. Can I call you Coach Mini? Because obviously the Benji Fishes were paying attention to it, and that's going to propel them as we take a look at the actual full standings with Team Benji Fishes. The Benji Fishes actually now in position 5 after all of the games so far. So that's going to be really, really important for them as they now hit 128 points, only 18 points short of position number 4 and 19 points of hitting that top 3.
Yeah, really, really close in that sort of second to maybe 5th, 6th position. Of course, we see QUB kind of running away with it. 328 points total, 117 eliminations total as well, with 5 victory royales. But what we can see, Riot and Flanksy, for example, Easy Money as well, these teams, they're not shy of a victory royale either. And we're going to see who's going to come out on top in game number 8 here.
5 victory royales out of 7 games is something unbelievable. And with 3 games to go, some of the other teams in 2nd and 3rd place are going to need a couple of miraculous performances to dethrone QUB. But we saw, looking down the standings, there's a great fight for the top 10. I think top 3 is quite well defined, but place 4 all the way to 10, the teams are only separated by 5 to 10 points. So every single elim, every single position you manage to get higher from your opponents might propel you into that top 5.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, isn't it? Making sure that you can get as many of those placement points as possible and maximize the points that you can gain from each and every game. Now, speaking of points, we're seeing Aiden and Janok unfortunately try to go for some maximizing of points by going to a sort of edge map location. The Dusty Depot area, unfortunately no builds for Aiden, no protection, no cover, and 1 HP. I was going to say no HP, but just about. He's managed to escape the shots, evade fire that's oncoming from that south side of the map. Again, no builds though, and there it is, finally Gib taking them out. Now for Aiden's teammate Jan, they're going to have to make a crucial decision. Do you try and save your teammate? Do you try and rotate on out? Looking at Aiden's HP, I think they just have to rotate on out, and yeah, Gib just gets that finish right there. So Jan just have to think, you know what, this is going to be a solo effort for me for now. Can I pick up Aiden later on? We'll have to wait and see. But this is one of those situations where more teams are landing at a less congested area because they all think it's going to be safe. They all think they're going to be the only team there, but everyone's thinking the same.
The zone is quite favorable here for Jan. Maybe if they manage to somehow hang around here for a couple of minutes, might be able to get a late reboot if they manage to collect it, as the zone is not very far from that edge map position. Meanwhile, we are going back to the Lustrous Lagoon, where Envelopes and Latio Spoon are trying to farm. But they are essentially on top of another duo. I'm not quite sure. Is that another duo? I see a couple blue around them. Is that a teammate? No, it's just the two of them. I think it's got to be a full clear farm fest for Latio Spoon and Envelopes, a duo that we've seen do quite well with early kills in both games so far, but not managing to get into those last 5 duo spots and to get the proper placement points so far.
Yeah, hopefully they'll be able to fix the problems they've been having. Of course, we saw Jan go down in the... Unfortunately, Gib taking out Jan. Unfortunately for Jan, but a great couple of eliminations for Gib and their duo, just able to pick up some great loot there. Or Spawn dominate the area and force another team away. For Envelopes and company right now, they're able to pick up some extra loot from that sapling. Lukey and Coles right now, they're just rotating all the way up to the north side of the map and towards the south side of this building. They're just able to farm as much as they possibly can. They have solid loot as well. This is pretty good map knowledge, using this zipline to rotate as quickly as possible. And this is really, really good from Lukey. Now, it might just look like he's going crazy with the button mashing, but he's actually just ensuring that nobody can headshot snipe him. Of course, if you're just sat there, you're a sitting duck, you're ziplining, and you're very much static. But if you can keep jumping up and down and reconnecting onto that zipline, it becomes a much more difficult target for someone like Aitani, maybe, who's very, very solid with the sniper, as we saw in the last game.
We talked about this. Game number 2, all teams in the lobby seem to have slowed it down. But now, game number 3, even more so, everybody is just going as far away as possible from center map, trying to secure any possible loot and stay alive as much as possible. Because we mentioned this, if you are going to be one of the last 10 teams, you will get a ton of points. And you see how hard it is to contest the titans of the server, and so far Coleslaw and Lukey are getting pretty good loot for such a drop.
Yeah, solid loot indeed. They get the key, which opens the vault, of course, so that just opens up a whole new world of opportunities when it comes to loot, and you can see the decisions being made right there for Coles, deciding to keep that Slurpfish, those Chug Splashes, and of course those Floppers in the inventory, going for a very basic, very bare bones loadout, but prioritizing heals over anything else, which is going to prove to be very, very important later on down the line, I'm sure. As we see Lukey just close by, and there's another team just lurking. If you see in the top right of the minimap there, you can see some other team potentially making their presence known in just a moment. Will that boil over into a fight? We'll have to wait and see. But now we're hopping on over, shifting gears a little bit to just Xeon, who's just deciding to farm as much of this metal as possible. Cloudy Condos just inside of zone as well. This is not an area of the map that usually sees too much of the zone. They've been quite fortunate with the zone pull so far. So for Tills and just Xeon, these guys are just able to use as much of this loot as possible. They have everything they could possibly need. It looks like they had it uncontested as well with the lack of eliminations. So really, really solid start for this team. Let's see if they can continue to really look good in this game. So things can change pretty quickly, as we've seen. So let's see if they can keep it up.
Yeah, hopefully they will manage to keep up with the second and third zone, but so far they are in a good position. As you mentioned, edge zone, just farming away, great POI all by themselves, getting all that metal here for Xeon. Meanwhile, Tix is still trying to find maybe better weaponry, maybe more big pots. So far, a pretty bare bone loadout for Xeon, despite having an open POI.
Yeah, very. I mean, that's a good point. He doesn't actually have a shotgun. They don't have that much ammo. They're deciding to go for the lightsaber instead of maybe another secondary close-range weapon. Slight little bit of fall damage maybe taken there, but maybe that's all part of the plan. But the plan for Flanksy and Riot right now, they're just sneaking up. And hopefully, for them, going to be able to get a nice beam, maybe a little snipe if one of them have it, onto one of the other players. It's, of course, Mike and their duo lurking in the area. We've seen a lot of action with them close by, but now Riot's been snuffed out in the bush, and Flanksy's trying to sneak up, and it's not quite worked because now Riot's going to take on a 2 versus 1 situation, down to 58 HP. This is not a situation you want to be in at all, as ABZ Abs decides to take them out, and Flanksy just says, you know what, that didn't work. Let's retreat, let's reevaluate, let's reconsider, and let's hopefully reboot.
Two of the teams that we saw go very late in the first 2 games having an early contest right here by Rocky Reels, and this time Flanksy and Riot taking the short end of the stick, with Abs and Mike being very happy to take all the loot that Riot had on his body, and obviously that 1 elimination point.
This is another team we saw earlier, Gib getting 2 early eliminations. That's a huge bolster for this team that are now just hovering next to the hovering vault, trying to assess whether it is worth going up there, potentially grabbing themselves some extra loot. But looking at Gibbs' loadout, pretty solid so far, not looking too worrisome for them. Maybe a little bit of ammo could be required. There's plenty of areas that they can pick up some of that loot, as we see Luke going down to Alexa in the feed. And there is a team down below here. This is the fungi farm area of the map, just the southwest of Greasy Groves. This is one of those areas where you could probably take a fight. Now, if I was Gib and I was his teammate, this is one of those sort of situations where you probably could take a fight, because look, there's no other teams around, there's not too much potential for a third party, and that's exactly what's happening right here, as the Keys right now just getting involved, trying to get some tags off on Hype right now, and unfortunately their teammate does go down, and once again we see a 2 versus 1 situation result in the solo just backing off.
Yeah, we see some of the AI also getting involved in that fight right now, with a couple bullets being sprayed around just to create a bit more mayhem, but Alex is just going to take the boot and going to try to just maybe get away for reboot. Meanwhile, we see the duel finally being initiated, and it's Parox being pushed by Gib and Elite Gameon, but this is the duo that got second place right now. I think this is 4 teams duo.
Yeah, this is a huge moment for this team, as they were able to get a little bit of damage off on this duo that was to the south of them, but it looks as though that duo, I believe it was 14 and company, they've just decided, okay, let's just back off. This is not the fight we want to take. We don't want to get backed into the corner, because, of course, that zone is going to start closing in just under 40 seconds now for this duo. So if it's a long-distance pull, they don't want to be fighting in the storm. You don't want to be held back in the zone. And for both teams, this is a really smart disengage. Gib and their teammate, they already have eliminations. They've already sorted their loot out. They're looking good, and they're able to just rotate in. They don't need those eliminations. I'm sure they'll make it fine.
I'm not sure. Have we missed? Did 14 lose their life earlier in the skirmish? Because when the rotation happened, Parox left, and he seemed to be all by himself. And I think they were just both of them together earlier. Maybe 14 just opted for an early rotate, and Parox was alone in a 1 versus 2. And hopefully they didn't lose their life, because, you know, you want to get that consistency. Fortnite is a game all about consistency. Getting good placement, getting good kills time and time again is what's going to put you on top of the overall leaderboards.
That's absolutely right, and we can see Gib and their duo rotating in using the flying device, the balloons, the rotation, all dotted across the map. Makes for really easy rotations, but of course, as we saw earlier, it does come with a little bit of risk, as they've just eyed up another position to sort of pitch up on. Just one of these little huts on the outside of the map. They have to be careful, though. Of course, that zone, that storm is now closing. The safe zone, the safe area is getting smaller and smaller by the second. Looking at their loot, they're really set up for success here, so they want to be making it to the later stage of this game, as we see Abs right now. And their teammate going up against Million and Ashley. This is a difficult fight for them to take, of course, because we know how strong Abs and their duo can be. And Ashley and Million, they have it all to do here.
Oh, Million gets spammed away. Abs and Mike getting the first kill of that duo, and now... Ooh, a nice crack. We see Ashley managing to get some damage done back onto Mike. Meanwhile, Abs secures the kill onto Million. It's Ashley in a 1 versus 2 and a dream. But pretty good loadout so far for Ashley. Though, low ground. And we saw Abs and Mike in the high ground position time and time again, managing to swarm their opponents when they have the numeric advantage. And they do the same. Ashley trying to escape from this position underneath them. But look at Abs waiting with their open arms, but Ashley gets a nice shotgun tag onto them without getting any damage dealt back. And now Ashley managed to reposition. Abs and Mike will have to get a few heals in. Time is ticking, but they are center zone. The only risk for Abs and Mikey here is to get third-partied by another team.
Yeah, that's the risk that this fight's going to take, and I think that's why they might not be going quite as aggressive as you usually expect. They're backing off a little bit as Ashley now is rotating away, and look who it is. Look who's arrived. The dynamic duo of Itami and Sky. This is not a dynamic duo that you want to be focusing on or getting involved with, because Mike and Abs, they're just feeling the full force of the goo gun right now, the full force of the shots that couldn't quite connect from Itami, but he doesn't miss twice. He connects with the second as Mike goes down. Now Abs down to white HP. The time is ticking, and unfortunately for Abs, I think the time is about to end for this team's involvement in the game. Itami and Sky, good HP. Abs, not so much. Down to 1 HP, and down and out they go. Itami and Sky, once again, steamrolling another team.
And we took a quick look with that drone shot, and we saw Ashley managing to disengage on the back of this push from Sky and Itami. Ashley, thanking their lucky star that, they got third party, which we mentioned. That was the risk for Mickey and Abs. And sadly, they are on the receiving end of a great rotate from Sky and Itami, who are yet again in pole position to win this game number 7.
Yeah, they absolutely are, and they've been able to find their loot off spawn really, really well, and you can see that even without the eliminations they just found there, they had excellent loot. They had the artillery to go up and fight these teams that they are going up against, and as we see, yep, it's 14 Peroxy right now. They just sat inside the bush. They're playing things safe. They're playing things calm. This is what we were talking about earlier. A lot of the teams that maybe did go down a little bit earlier on in games 1 and 2, or games 6 and 7, you could say, these are the sort of teams that will start to switch up their strategies. Will they start going for a little bit more placement? I think this is one of the teams that we were highlighting in game number 1. This is one of the teams that maybe tried to go a little bit too aggressive. It didn't quite pay off, but in that last game, we saw them get second. Courtesy of a great play from 14 and Peroxy pick up the pieces and hopefully end this game as a duo and hopefully get the victory as a duo, because that's what we want to see. We want to see some upsets. We want to see some differences. But of course, for Sky and Itami, they're just putting on a show.
Meanwhile, we have Keto getting an LM earn. Cheeto, another player that we have been highlighting time and time again, but Cheeto seems to find himself in a position to lose their life pretty much consistently around this zone rotation. And I don't know, that's something that maybe they might change in their approach when they rotate, if it's an IGL mistake or if Cheeto just gets a bit overzealous when rotating. But again, losing this life, the third game in a row, pretty much at the same time, is not going to dwell well for their placement in the final leaderboard.
Not at all. So they're going to have to fix those problems going into the final couple of games as Sky and Itami. They're not going to be switching up their strategy. We know how they play. It's all guns blazing. It's absolute rock and roll Fortnite. And that is exactly what they're trying to do. They're going all out as they get an easy elimination onto Tills right there using that goo gun. As you see Alexa taking out Leet in the feed. That's a difficult elimination. Of course, Gib now left as a solo in that one. So we saw them rotating earlier. They've sort of fallen down into a solo situation. Sky alive, but Itami just down to very, very low HP. This is very unusual. We wouldn't see usually Sky taking a fight on their own. I think they're just waiting for Itami to heal up, backing off. We know Ashley's a solo. It's a really interesting push from Ashley. But I like this from Sky and Itami. They're not getting too greedy. They know they're in the pole position, but they want to keep it.
Yeah, I think Ashley is the solo that Sky and Itami saved just a few moments ago when they pushed a third party that, and now I think they're taking back to get what's rightfully theirs, and Ashley's gonna be pushed in edge zone, and Sky relentless, just building on top, almost taking the high ground. I think they have it. Yes, Sky in pole position again, high ground, getting a shot in, but Ashley still managed to deal some damage back, but still a 1 versus 2 for Ashley. Gets pushed in the box, gets a kill on the eye, it's one shot away. Yes, Sky gets it yet again, and again, the safe pair of hands of this duo. Itami gets taken out by Ashley, but Sky is there, trading the kill and reviving.
Sky really is the foundations of this duo. Itami goes a little bit crazy sometimes, hops in the box, tries to make a crazy play, but Sky's there to clean up and just settle the ship a little bit, you could say, for this duo. I like that from Sky, doing a really, really good job. We saw Gib go down in the feed there as well, just while that fight was going on. We saw Alexa taking them out, so that's another duo out of the lobby. We're seeing some more players going down as well, and this is a prime position for Chiz and Kaylee right now. They're able to just hold all of these players that are rotating in. I believe it's Riot that is making their way into the zone. There's a duo just on the edge of the map. Of course, it's Flanksy as well. This is a perfect position for Chiz and Kaylee because they're using the zone. They're using the Storm as a way to push Flanksy and Riot into their domain and hopefully into their box so they can get some eliminations, get the loot, which is exactly what they need. They need to get those heals. They need to get that refresh going into this endgame.
Yeah, this is going to be a big fight coming in, and can this duo get back into the zone as Chiz is just holding them behind under that bridge, which is out of zone. Meanwhile, Itami and Sky, they are in a pretty good position, not necessarily edge zone, but just slightly towards center, and they will be trying to take the high ground. Meanwhile, Itami jumps into another box, gets the kill onto Keydog, and 4 kills already. Eliminations galore for this duo.
Yep, points. Elims. That's what this team are all about, and they're going hunting for more. They're not satisfied. They are not going to be happy with only 4. That's small numbers for them. It's tiny numbers for them, and you can see the piece control coming through. Great elimination from Sky there as well, using all of his mechanical prowess to take out Lukey right there, and it was needed as he did chunk a huge amount of damage down to that white HP, but able to heal up as quick as anything. Able to pop that big pot as well, hopefully, and they'll be able to get on with the game, as I believe Itami does take out the teammate of Lukey, finding some white HP as well. The Corn being used so well, and that's their 6th elimination of the game. I see no signs of this runaway train stopping anytime soon.
Yeah, they definitely don't seem to be stopping anytime soon, as you said, but maybe this next zone rotate might put them in a precarious position, as they are one of the 3 duos very far from the circle. But meanwhile, we see a rotate. A couple of duos actually from the next zone are rotating out. That's very interesting tactical decision from those few players.
Yeah, it is indeed, and this is where the rotations are going to have to be made. How do you make them is the question, and do they have the answers to that all-important question? Sky and Itami look to be the last team that are going to be rotating in. Chiz now, once in such a great position, unfortunately now left as a solo, as Riot, the players that they were trying to focus going into the zone, have got their revenge, as Chiz now left as a solo with a decent amount of builds, but is it going to be enough to fend off the pressure from Riot and company? I don't think it is. Riot makes his presence known on the side of that wall as Chiz decides to get out. Can they survive for a little bit longer? Sky getting another elimination in the feed as well. They're going on an absolute rampage. Chiz, unfortunately, getting at the fire from all different angles, cracking the shield down to that white HP as well. And this is where Chiz have to try and find an escape, but it can't escape other than to the lobby.
It's 14 with a double kill right now, one onto Chiz and one onto another duo, I think. But Flanksy and Parox just having their skirmish on their own, and Parox comes out on top. We are back on following Itami. Rotate behind. I think they're sneaking up right here. I don't know if they have been spotted just following into Sky's footsteps, but they have such a great position right now, just trying to break into a cone, just spraying themselves in. It's a 2 versus 1, just a couple HP, and Stiv loses their life to Sky, and it's kill number 9 for this duo.
Unbelievable stuff yet again, but now they have the pressure. This is the spanner in the works that we were talking about earlier. They're going to have to heal up as quickly as possible as Riot and their duo just raining down the fire, raining down the goo on top of Itami and Sky. They do have the answers though. They do have the heals to the questions of that goo. I think they're going to be able to get out of this sticky situation quite literally for this duo, and I think they're quite able to just retain that high ground as we see them do so often.
That was a great chance for a team to pressure them, but they opt of stopping that pressure. Finally, Sky gets slightly pushed down, but the glue gun in hand and the high ground. And this is rinse and repeat from game number 2. Sky and Itami with great position, just spraying around the glue gun, trying to bait as many builds from their opponents while the duos are hugging each other on the low ground. And so much damage being dealt right now onto David and Leisho Spoon.
Huge amount of damage indeed. This is the prime position to use that goo gun, able to spray down the fire, and that's where it's going to be most effective, getting inside of the box and really doing that damage as David does go down to Itami in the feed as well. Now right left as a solo, 4 eliminations to their name, so they can try and add to that, hopefully for them, but they're of course going up against duos with 10 players still left in the lobby at this stage. Still plenty of players that they have to sort of fend their way through as Alexa goes down to Itami yet again in the feed. They're going on an absolute rampage. That's their 11th of the game. The builds are running a little bit low though for Sky, only on the wood, so could this mean that they have to switch up their game plan? They're usually a little bit more careful with the approach to getting eliminations in endgame because they want to prioritize the placements as well, but I think they just have to go for it here. They need these hard materials.
Oh, we see a couple of shockwaves attempt, and I think Leisho Spoon has the high ground. Sky is just trying to rebuild all the way up, and Leisho Spoon in a great position. Meanwhile, Paradox gets a kill, and Leisho Spoon the second. Now, this is a duel for the high ground. Sky takes it from Leisho Spoon and drops on their head. And Sky says, this is, again, my playground. Don't contest me, and thanks for the mats.
Yeah, huge plays from Sky yet again, just clutching up, getting that high ground, retaining it, and then jumping down at the perfect moment. Speaking of that, Riot does jump down, unfortunately losing HP in the process. 5 eliminations for him, so he's able to pick up yet another elimination. This is a huge moment for them because they need to try and heal up as much as possible. This is now what is it? It's a 2v1. This is too intense for me to even handle right now because Peroxy and 14, they're down below. They've had another stellar performance, and this is where we're going to see a team that's going to close out. We saw it going head-to-head last time. We saw, of course, Sky and Itami going against 14 and their team, but now 14's the one in the storm, and 14 is the one that could go down as Riot does shockwave up, but no, Sky shuts him down immediately.
6 HP for Sky, but they don't dream about it. They make the dreams happen, and now they're onto the low ground, dealing a duel. Axe, 1 versus 1 again, but this time, Peroxy is also alive by their side. It's a 1 versus 1. This time, the other 2 teammates, Peroxy versus Itami. Can Itami get it? Yes, he can! And it's the other duo partner managing to get the victory for their team.
Yeah, we talk so much about Sky being the anchor of the duo, being the safe pair of hands, but Itami proving his worth once again, all the way up on the high ground right there. Beautiful elimination and really, really smart way to close out the game. Really, really mature, really, really calm, and I like what they did there.
Again, the same top 2. It was 14, but this time not by themselves. Sadly, Peroxy against Itami this time, not managing to clutch the situation. So, you might have told your teammate, come on, you could have clutched that last game. Well, that was your shot right now. You had the other one. You didn't manage to do it either, but the consistency of both of these 2 teams is absolutely outstanding. Getting up to, well, top 1 3 times in a row for Itami and Sky. It's something completely else. But also, getting 2nd place, time and time again, it's great from Peroxy and 14.
Yeah, they're doing as much as they possibly can. As we have a little look through the replays here, we saw some of the action going down in game number 8, and this is really where we start to sort of see a lot of teams that maybe we weren't expecting to do well start to come into their own a little bit, but also start to identify which teams are likely to be coming out on top. We know all about Itami and Sky, but maybe the 14 team, maybe the teams that are a little bit lower down that we weren't expecting to do so well are now just being able to pick up that consistency. As we talked about earlier, those 2nd places are so important, and as you can see, the absolute firepower of Itami and Sky, just unrelenting pressure, and you can see the piece control coming through from both sides of the duo. And this is really where things got crazy because the end game was pretty stacked.
Yeah, absolutely. But we also have to mention the Roehampton team, Abs and Mike, one of the teams with a high chance of getting the top 3, top 5 at the end of this tournament, were taken out so early with that mid-game duel versus Itami and Sky. Unfortunate for them, and they're gonna put them further behind, especially after 2 back-to-back 2nd place finishes for 14 and Peroxy.
Yeah, this is really where we start to see things all boil over. I thought for a moment that Itami and Sky weren't quite going to be able to make it happen because, of course, we saw Itami all the way up on high ground. But as we've seen from this duo so often, we've seen Itami clutching up. We've seen Sky clutching up. They've each had their share. They've each had their slice of the pie. And their pie is quite large at the moment.
Yeah, that pie is very large indeed. I think they have won 6 or 7 games so far. Anyway, unbelievable statistics, but we will check them right now. We will check them right now. The stats are on the screen. Let's see how that game turned out and what points the teams managed to secure. Fabulous. We have QEB. See, I gotta mention this, Mini. I think they are slowly turning down the pace. We had 19 kills, we had 18 kills, and now a measly 15 kills.
Measly, you could say. I mean, it's, yeah, 15 eliminations. They've done a great job, 15 eliminations. But I think what that shows, it's not necessarily them being a little bit less aggressive. I think it's them just being a little bit more smart, right? We've seen them so early on, just putting that pressure on, making their statement in the first game with the first victory with the highest elimination count we've seen all day. But what they've done now, they've turned it down just a tad because they know that the games are getting a little bit more stacked. Teams are getting a little bit more streetwise as to where everyone's landing, where everyone's rotating, how the map is sort of fizzling out. And I think that's what the other teams are doing. They're making their way to the end game. And Sky and Itami, they're not able to quite find them in the mid game, which is why their eliminations are a little bit low. But still, 15 and the victory, couldn't ask for much more.
Yes, we couldn't ask for much more as we enter the final quarter of these grand finals. But to find out what we can expect from all of the teams in the last 2 games, we will be back, both Waxin and Mini, after a short break.
Cover it up, you like to play your own game. Cover it up, don't let them know what you're thinking. I bet you never tell them how it feels. I bet you never even try to be real. You won't go fooling me twice now, baby. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. You won't go fooling me twice now, baby. I'm sorry, that's the way it is, yeah. Don't you think like that, I will love you endlessly. If you don't believe in me, don't you be like that, I will love you forever. If you don't believe in me, yeah. In me, yeah. I told you once, baby, I told you once what I know. You got to let it go. I told you once, baby, I told you once what I know. You got to let it go. You won't go fooling me twice now, baby. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. You won't go fooling me twice now, baby. I'm sorry, that's the way it is, yeah. Don't you think like that, I will love you endlessly. If you don't believe in me, don't you be like that, I will love you forever. If you don't believe in me, yeah.
Walking the edge, what am I falling into?
The NSE Fortnite Winter Cup. Mini Miner and I am Waxen here bringing you all of the action for this upcoming 2 grand final games. And Mini, I have to ask you, as we already start dropping in from the bus, consistency is key in esports. Fortnite or any other esport titles, and we have had a consistent team. But do you think they will be managing to replicate their performance level going to the last quarter of the finals?
I think it's now or never for a lot of these teams, right? If you're not able to keep up that consistency earlier on, it's a bit too late to think about consistency. This is where you have to go for a big game if you want to move yourself up in the leaderboard. We already know that there's some big teams on the top that are doing that game in, game out, but maybe this is time for a brand new team to make their presence known in the lobby. Hopefully we'll see that. I want to see some teams that are really unconventionally popping off in terms of eliminations. Maybe teams that are taking their stance in the end game, taking the high ground and being really aggressive. So we'll see that, hopefully, from one of the teams in this penultimate game. We have Million and Ashley right now just looking to hold out the fort of Fort Jonesy. There is a team contesting them, though, so they have to be a little bit careful with how they approach this. But this is it. This is a huge game, because this could be a turning point for a lot of the teams. This could be one of those games where if we have a big game here and a solid game in the last game, we could turn our day whole around, to be honest.
Absolutely. A 45-point victory royale with a couple of eliminations can make or break your series. Some of the teams that maybe didn't even hit that 50 elimination mark so far, maybe 100 elimination points so far, they could turn around their whole careers. And we mentioned this at the beginning of the live stream. For some of these players that have never played in such a competitive, high-level contested final for Fortnite before, this could be the beginning of a new career.
It really could. I mean, for a team like Sky and Itami showing their presence in the lobby with eliminations after eliminations, they're doing so good at that as well. I think that's the cause of them having an uncontested Tilted Towers. I think at the beginning, maybe there was a few teams that sort of fancied their chances against them, but now they're uncontested. Unfortunately, though, for Ashley and Million, they're not uncontested. They're having to battle off spawn, and this is where the junglers start to come in. This is where the mess starts to ensue at the beginning of the game. They're having to try and connect with as many shots as possible. Ashley going down to just that white HP, so having to disengage as quickly as possible. Only 24 HP, 6 HP now for Ashley. Their life's not going to be lasting too much longer, as Million now has to try and pick up the pieces of what Ashley left, and this is bad for Million now. This is really, really bad. He does get the knock, though. Alexa goes down, and this could be a huge elimination, and it is. That's a 2v1 from Million, only on 9 HP. The clutch moment in the penultimate game. This is the moments that we talk about. These are the moments that define a team. This make or breaks your entire tournament, and hopefully for Million, they can get their teammate up, and they can really mount an attack on the top of the leaderboard here.
Oh, unbelievable, outstanding, exceptional. That's what we want to see, especially when we are about to close in this grand final. You know, game number 9, a week of hard battles, and this is the play you have when you open up the game. That's gonna give you such a confidence boost.
That's got to give you a confidence boost, hasn't it? This is one of those moments where the team comms, if we could hear them, they'll be going crazy. I'm sure the mics will be going unbelievable. There'll be some excitement in that duo's comms for sure. Of course, Itami and Sky, they've been having that all day. They've been bringing the hype. They've been bringing the high eliminations. They've been bringing the incredible gameplay that we've come to learn to know from Sky and Itami. We know all about this team. This is where they're just trying to hold down this fort of Tilted Towers. We haven't really seen too much of a Tilted Towers end zone so far, so but now they're able to sit inside of the zone and not really need too much damage off spawn. If they need to, they'll definitely be able to pick it up, as we've seen throughout the day. I like this from Sky and Itani. They're not necessarily overextending here. They're being very calm about the way they play it. They're being very smart. They don't want to take any risky fights. They're in the top spot. They want to stay there.
Absolutely, and I think they must be breaking some sort of record if they keep winning the last 2 games. I'm sure there is some stats somewhere in the world with 2 grand finals, with a grand final where a team has won 8 games. And as I say that, there is a bit of a skirmish right now here in Green Gables, and Ace is trying to use the glue gun, not managed to get any kill just yet. The damage being traded back and forth, and now he's getting pushed through the corn. Ace very low in HP, 60 HP, no more shield, and they're getting built up on them. Now, 24 with an open window, not managed to edit it back in. Meanwhile, Weewa just using the glue gun to break the shield of their opponents, and now this is their chance to push. They're now having the high ground. Can they get the kill into the corner? One opponent is 1 HP.
Yeah, 1 HP right now. Weewar does have the materials to hopefully take them out. And there it is, the Goo Gun, the double Goo Gun elimination. I don't think they know it, but they did. They took them both out. You've done it, Weewar. You've done it. You've got the eliminations. You've got both of them. You've taken them both out. Now your goal is to take out maybe the Corn? I don't know. What are they doing? They're going to get the teammate up, get them back in the game. That's a huge clutch using the Goo Gun, and that's what we were talking about earlier. These pubs items, these items that we're not used to seeing in competitive, they can really flip a fight, and that's exactly what it's all about.
It's a celebratory usage of the glue gun. You know, tearing the Corn apart. It doesn't matter. You torn your opponents apart. You can do that to the Corn.
Why not? I mean, I like it. You know, you've taken out a duo. Why not take out the whole POI as well? You know, take out everything that's in your path and then revive your teammate. But we shift gears now to Kaylee and Chiz, who are rotating down from that north side of the map. I like the plays from this team making an early rotation. They've identified the zone is not close to them whatsoever. But they're being really, really smart about it. And they're not taking any chances when it comes to rotation. They're getting it done early. They're getting their homework done early, if you like. They're just getting into the zone and getting it over and done with. And hopefully for them, they can pick up some eliminations later on in the game. As the feed's a little bit more quiet now, teams get a little bit more nervy, potentially. Teams looking to just close out as many placement points as possible, maybe seeing how some of the better teams in the lobby are doing and trying to replicate some of that success to hopefully become one of those teams that are on top. This is exactly what we want to see from maybe some of the teams that are lower down on the leaderboard. It's Kaylee now just rotating all the way through Chrome Crossroads area. And just enjoying the sights, enjoying, you got some plants here, you got some shield, you got everything you could possibly need.
Kaylee and Chiz, one of the duos that we saw make some noise in that last game. Unfortunately, just losing a skirmish well, they got third-partied essentially, and now they're opting for a rotate that seems to have more of a clear path. Meanwhile, Aches, right now, alongside his teammate Weewa, after getting those kills, they are now doing something that I asked, why don't you think more teams did earlier? But now we see at least a couple of duos in Storm tanking it. And look at Weewa behind Jan. I think Weewa can spot them, but they're off the Shockwave. Maybe they're unaware there's a team just next to them and miss the second Shockwave. Weewa's gonna get shot in the back. 2 HP, they got a dodge the Storm. Yes! Oh, so unfortunate. Aches just gonna have to run away and maybe try to get the zone. I don't think there's a chance for them to salvage the card. No, there's not. Aches just gonna disengage, and it's gonna be a one-man dream for the remainder of this map.
Weewa, excellent performance off spawn, though, getting those double eliminations with the Goo Gun, but now the shoe's on the other foot. Their teammate's going to have to try and clutch up for them, as now we see Lukey and Coles on the high ground just outside of the Rave Cave area, looking to try and scope out any potential enemies. And this is a weapon we haven't really seen too much of today as well, the Cobra DMR, one of those high fire rate weapons. When you tap fire it, you can see it in full use right now. The scope being put to good use, trying to scope out an enemy potentially in the area down below, and they opt to rotate. I think Keydog and Lord DeLorean right there just deciding to do the same, thinking let's just rotate our way in and make sure we prioritize positioning, because this is a huge moment in the game, Wax, and this is one of those games where, or a huge moment in the tournament, a huge moment in the game as well, but it's one of those points where you got to think, like, how do these teams manage the game? Are they going to go for more eliminations? Do they need the eliminations, or do they just maybe go for a little bit more placement?
I personally think placement is the key thing right now, unless you feel like you've got the confidence and the necessary loadout, or maybe you feel like your loadout isn't good enough and you might want to try to kill one of your opponents in order to get their better guns. Although, you know, playing at a gun disadvantage is never a clever thing to do.
Yeah, that's definitely not. Yeah, you don't want to be doing that. That's definitely true. But we see a lot of teams just opting to maybe switch up their game plan, switching up their elimination strategies. Maybe you're thinking about players that are maybe pushing into certain POIs to pick up eliminations, not doing so anymore because it's too risky. You know, a lot of players will have picked up on the fact that certain teams are rotating in different directions, so they've already snuffed out those potential strategy changes. But for Coleslaw and Lukey, they're just enjoying themselves next to the reality tree, just inside of the zone as well, and able to scope out this building. And maybe they just want to play it a little bit more calmly, a little bit more carefully, being very careful about the way that they're going inside of this building. Very, very smart indeed. And this is exactly what we were talking about. Teams that maybe would have been a little bit more aggressive earlier and a little bit more risky with the rotations, they're not taking any chances.
No, they're not. And they're opting for a very, very extra safe position right there in the attic of that house. Meanwhile, we are switching on to Greasy Grove, where we have Abs and Mike. Meanwhile, Sky getting the kill on Chiz again. I just mentioned how Chiz and his teammate died very early in a rotation to Sky, and it happens again. Time and time again. I don't know if it's a caster's curse or they just don't want to stay alive, or maybe Sky has a vendetta with them. They're just chasing them down around the map.
I think anyone in the path of Sky and company will be definitely subject to some serious damage, and I think that's unfortunately what's happening right there. They've just got in the way of Sky and Itani. I don't think Itani and Sky they'll be thinking about going around. I think they just go straight through teams. I think they just take them out, and that's it. You know, we're not going to be disengaging. And Abs and Mike there sat on one elimination so far. We saw them sat inside of one of the buildings, playing it a little bit safe as well, as it looks as though we do have a little bit more of a southern zone. Keydog gets an elimination in the feed there as well for Abs to just getting back into the safety of all of this shield. Now, what's good about these mushrooms, you can actually jump on them, and every 20 seconds it regenerates. So you can get 15 HP every single time, 15 shield or HP every single time you jump on one of those mushrooms, and every single 20 seconds it is going to regenerate. So it's almost unlimited HP, and that's why we see Abs opting to not use the mini shields, not use the chug splashes, waste those valuable heals, but instead use the natural heals that are in the area.
Marley back on the scoreboard. We haven't seen them in a couple of games, getting the kill onto Lord Elysium, and now there is a fight. We have Keydog getting just flanked and sandwiched in by Itami and Sky. Can Keydog get away with their life? Only 40 HP, no shields. Itami in their box, shotgun to the head. Keydog will have to wait on the sidelines to play in the final game.
They really will, and that's not the position you want to be in. You want to be in the game. You want to be going up against teams, well, you don't want to be going up against teams like Itami and Sky, but you want to be going up against the other teams in the lobby and trying to get as much placement as possible. Unfortunately, there for that player. Their time is up, and Itami and Sky claim yet another victim of their power. So now we see Aiden getting eliminations in the feed again. And this is really good for Itami and Sky. Again, this is one of those teams where you'd think that they would just rotate. WK another team, go for higher eliminations, go for big damage. But they're scouting out the area. They're being very, very aware. This is what we were talking about earlier. Being very, very aware, scouting out the area before you use that mobility, making sure that there's no potential for anyone to beam you out of the sky. And that's exactly why they have that free rotation all the way up on top of this reality tree. They've got this domain, they've got this real estate to themselves, and they're going to use it, I'm sure.
Absolutely, and very interesting change of tactic from that duo. We saw them earlier in this grand final, opting to be the first to rotate, take control of the high ground in the center of zone 3, but now they are playing sort of edge zone, as we're now watching Tix just trying to get some damage as they open up their box and get hit in the head by yet another duo, have to shockwave away, go regroup with their teammate, and might have to pop this big shield. Maybe a couple of minis from Just Zion. No, they're just gonna go straight for the big pot, not any small heals from their teammate, and I think they are getting pushed, I see, by the green duo right now.
Yeah, they have to be extra careful right there. We saw the shockwaves being used just so really, really well just to get out of that situation, get out of that sticky situation. Done very, very well. We see Elite there going down to right, Gib there as well, Elite's duo going down, so Gib and Elite out of the game in this penultimate one. They're going to have to sit on the sidelines and wait till the final one. Just Zion and Tools right now, they're just able to rotate on this less congested side of zone. We don't see too many of those little triangles nearby, so they're going to have to play things a little bit more safe. Sat inside of the bush as Aiden goes down yet again to the hands of Sky.
Time is ticking, and we saw Kulo just slowly rotating behind Million and Ashley. This is a very funny position. Million and Ashley just now spotting them, lasering him out of the air, but Kulo in the bush, in the storm, 40 HP. Ashley gonna spam away, and now they're gonna push back into the storm. Kulo trying to make as much space as possible, but they will be taken out. I think they were a lone solo. Their teammate lost long ago in this map number 9.
Yeah, it was the crash pad there, wasn't it? The crash pad kind of revealed their location. I don't even think that was intentional. The crash pad just got thrown down, and then Millions and company, they were like, actually, hang on a sec, what's going on behind us? Oh, there's a player. Let's take them out nice and quickly, as Zion and Tills, unfortunately now, feeling the full wrath of the goo guns. They're just having to escape out. Unfortunately for Tills, they're not able to stay alive. Zion just getting away, staying alive on their own, and using the chrome blob. We haven't seen too many chrome blobs today being used. This is a prime example of how to get out.
I think this is only the second time. I think we saw an early game 1 rotate from a team, but Xeon with no builds gets caught off guard and pushed by Lukey and Coleslaw, getting their 4th kill this series, and that's gonna put them in a great position to loot up that duo and advance later on. Meanwhile, Itami and Sky getting a bit pressured by a couple of duos right now after getting yet another kill. They are up 5 kills this series, this map, and oh my goodness, it's happening again. They are pushing Mike and Apps, but Itami gets shots in the back. Somehow, the pressure stops being applied for some reason.
That was close. Of course, one of those boulders, you can't build on them. So it's actually, you're not actually able to build on one of those boulders. That's why I got a little bit scared there for a second, because Itami is moments away from going down, and there he is. The Titans of Itani and Sky, one of them has gone down. One of the half of the incredible duo that we've seen all day today has gone down. Sky has to try and pick up this revive. We know how strong they are as a unit, but how good are they going to be as a solo? I think they're going to be able to pick up this revive right now. There's Sky and Itami, I think, get out unscathed. I think they're okay, but that was a little bit of a nervy moment for this duo.
I think that's a huge mistake from the 4 duos around them right now. You see the scoreboard, Itami goes down, you realize where the skirmish was happening, you are pushing them, and they're not doing it. They will just be able to fully shield up, and now they're healing one by one, and they will come back pretty much ready to take on this whole lobby as we've seen so far. Meanwhile, Million and Ashley get glue gun all the way to under 200 HP. Ashley no more shield as well, and they are in a very, very uncomfortable situation on the very, very bottom low ground.
Yeah, very, very uncomfortable indeed. This is like the middle seat on a plane. You just don't want to be there, you know, and this is a situation that they don't want to be in. They're getting out, they're getting outside, they're getting into the zone, and unfortunately there's unrelenting pressure from above. The goo gun just raining down all that goo, and that's not something that you want to be sort of focusing on, because that's explosive. You don't want to be having that on the top of your box, but they do get out. They're able to heal up. They're having to use a lot of their heals though, but oh no, that sound is not going to be a good sound for them. I think they're going to have to get away, but no, it's okay. I thought they were getting pressured there, but it's not too much of a problem. Dota now putting down the pressure onto 14. Now, this is a duo that we saw earlier putting on a show. They were coming second in a lot of instances. We saw it in the second game of the day, the third game of the day. They've been really, really consistent, but will that consistency fall because of Stiv and Dota?
Dota may be a bit overzealous without building safety from the high ground, getting tagged a bit down, and they will have to use a mini and a big pot to get back into it. But meanwhile, Ashley gets the kill into Mike and Million, doubles it up, takes out Abs, and Mike and Abs are out yet again, only getting the top 10.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy, as we see that team not doing too great, unfortunately for them. Dota, unfortunately for them, not able to pick up an elimination yet, but Civ does have one. We're trying to look for eliminations as much as they can, but they're also being very, very calm and collected about it, and calm and careful about how they go about it. This is really where they have to be careful about how they rotate. As Sky goes down in the feed, we saw Latio right there taking them out. This is a huge moment in the game, because now we saw Sky, of course, having to pick up the revive earlier on Itami, but now Itami's going to have to pick up the revive on Sky.
So much damage being dealt by Dota with this glue gun so far, and they have quite a good position right here in the edge zone, with a couple of teams still not managed to rotate in. Dota trying to pressure up, but there's no one there anymore. They will have to reserve it as the rotation is coming through from the opponents, trying to get under those couple of mushrooms. Steve building for Dota. Meanwhile, Coleslaw, Million, and Envelopes all getting a kill, and Sky gets taken out, actually!
Woo! There it is. That's half of the dominant duo down. That's a huge, huge, huge moment in this game, because we talk so much about Sky being the grounding force, the foundations of the duo. Itami now has to prove why they can clutch up as a solo, getting some unrelenting pressure from Stiv and Dota. This is a moment for Itami to really prove their worth in that duo, and I have no doubts that they can. This is a tough one.
Haley gets spotted by Stiv. Haley shoots back. They're like, I'm aware you're looking at me. I can shoot back at you too. Dota and Stiv so far in the best position in this lobby, considering Sky and Itami are down a player, but Itami has managed to rotate out of that isolated position, and it's going to be sneaking out underneath. Ashley and Million having a quick skirmish. Itami, look how far Itami got into the zone.
Very impressive, yeah, showing how knowledgeable he is at the end game, which is good to see. You don't necessarily need a duo if you have the brain of two people, as Ashley unfortunately now almost left as a solo on their own as Million does fall. They do have the heals to combat that, though. They're going to have to pop this flopper and those minis as soon as possible. Million trying to get inside the box. Will they pick up the revive? They're going to pick up the revive before they heal up. Could this prove unfortunate for this team? Because now Ashley has to try and dip away. I think they just have to prioritize the healing over the revive right now as Itami's applying the pressure. This is a big moment for Ashley. Ashley versus Itami on the other side of the wall. Itami sneaking up. He spots Ashley. This is a moment that Itami needs to pick up the refresh. You can see his loot. You can see his builds. Isn't too much, but he gets a huge elimination onto Ashley. That's going to really bolster their loadout going into it. Will we see the solo clutch from Itami? This is the moment.
Yeah, this is where Itami is going to show us that we have been wrong all this time and he can carry his weight in this duo, but so far they are on the very low ground. As I say that, Dota and Steve get taken out and Dota loses their life to fall damage. Great taken down, and look at 14. 14 is back on the high ground after a great shockwave. Steve is only second high ground, and I think they might have to contend with that. I don't think contest, considering 14 has overtaken you so definitely.
Itami now, though, you can see on the front side of the screen, he's getting pressured all right there. We saw the high ground falling, Flanksy going down to Itami. Itami still picking up elimination after elimination, proving that even though he's now a one-man band, he can still play a great beat indeed, as we see Latio, Spoon, and Envelopes just having to apply the pressure onto Itami. Could this be the end of the solo run, the solo clutch from Itami? I think it is. One of these shots is going to rain through in the first place, and there it is. It's Latio that does come out with that elimination. Huge elimination for them. And now, finally, we're going to see a whole new winner on top.
Finally, it's time to see who can take the crown off, and we see a great shockwave. Lacio taking out 14, and now they're in control of the high ground. Lacio gets taken down, full damage, not enough to take them out. It's Riot and Envelopes. No, Riot versus Lacio and Envelopes. Can Riot make this happen? They managed to get a couple of top threes, but now they have the low ground and just a couple of fields left. Lacio, Spoon, and Envelopes. This is their moment to shine, and they don't want to give it away.
This is a huge moment. You can see them being a little bit more careful. We saw the huge shockwave play from Lacio right now. That was really what got them this high ground, and this is the situation where they just need to close out. They need to close out the game. The fancy plays are done. It's all about results, and now this is a huge result for them if they can come out on top in this game. Right, goes down to almost 1 HP. Latio looking down. Envelopes finishes the job, and that is a huge 5 elimination victory royale for this team.
The confidence right here for Latio and Envelopes must be through the roof. Envelopes killing Sky early on, getting half of the formidable foe we saw so far, and then Latio, Spoon getting the kill onto Itami. They must be feeling themselves, and they display that in the last couple of kills, managing to get a victory royale, which I think is going to propel them pretty far up of the overall leaderboard.
Yeah, we saw when we said that we could be seeing maybe some spanners in the works, some differences in the leaderboard, and finally we have a different team that is winning a game, getting that victory royale in the penultimate game. That's a huge moment for this team. Not even maybe to take over the first place spot. I think we know who's going to be in the first place spot, but to boost their way up the leaderboard, picking up more and more eliminations throughout that game has just bolstered their points in overall standings. So that's what's most important. As we take a little look to the replays here, we can see all of the off-spawn battles that were going on. This was huge for Million, though. Let's just take a moment to relive this moment. Such huge shots, and that is really what it's all about. Those off-spawn eliminations really propelled them through, and Weewa, hats off to you.
Yeah, Weewa with a great clutch right here in Green Cable, just using the glue gun to perfection, spamming the way through the corn, getting the kill on both Shadow Demon and their duo, and disbelief is what Weewa experienced for the first, and unfortunately Karma came back to bite them as a couple of unfortunate launch pads gave away their position and had their life being lost in Storm. Meanwhile, we have a duel between Itami and Sky taken very early on in the rotation against Keydog, who lost it. Very, very simple. Itami time and time again just jumping into the opponent's boxes successfully, and that's a tactic that they seem to love.
Yeah, they really do. It just allows you to close out those eliminations nice and early on, but of course you do run the risk of going down, which is what we saw from Itami earlier on. Of course, then we know exactly what happened to Sky later on down the line. Itami was then left to solo clutch, but we saw some great plays. Of course, Ashley and Million just getting some eliminations in the mid-game, and Envelopes and Lacio able to clutch out the victory with a really a good way of playing, a really smart way of playing. They didn't just jump down, they kept the high ground, they healed up as much as they could, and then they picked up those eliminations.
Yes, and speaking of those eliminations, it's time for us to take a quick look at the leaderboard from that last game, and we have the big boys! 5 eliminations, 50 points. Riot and Flanksy with 5 on their own. Scramble Edgeheads just at the bottom, 6th place, 32 points, but 7 eliminations. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean that's QUB Esports level of eliminations right there. So as we were talking about, we can see teams that are getting to that level are getting a little bit more knowledgeable about how the lobby runs, and that's a perfect example of that right there as well. NTR picking up 4 eliminations as well, so they're doing very, very good, or did do very, very good, of course, in that previous game. But this is nice to see. We're nice to see a little bit of a switch up, a little bit of an easier, a more fair distribution of all of those eliminations that were, of course, taken by QUB.
And before we will move on to the final game, let's take a quick look at the overall standings. This is what actually matters right now, Mini. And we have QB 425 points and 6 wins out of 9 games.
That is unbelievable. I mean, 425 points. I think we can already crown them as our champions, but it's second, it's third, it's fourth. It's all to play for. You can see, of course, Riot, Flanksy, of course, they're only, 35 points away from the Benji Fishies in second place, or third place. It's definitely not too set in stone yet. We can still see a lot of the teams a little bit lower down, even the big boys, of course, as well, that did do very, very well in that previous game. Of course, easy money there as well in and around the area. Definite potential for a little bit of a change up in that second, third, and fourth spot potentially. But of course, we know first place spot, QUB Esports.
Yeah, of course, they are already the NSE Winter Cup Fortnite Grand Champions, but I don't think they should rest on their laurels. We saw that Game 9, they lost a couple of early battles, then a mid loss for Sky, forcing Itami to attempt a clutch, unable to do so due to the lack of resources and heals. Obviously, playing Pop, when you get the kill, you don't get that siphon. So that's going to be, that was what punished Itami, despite getting 3 kills and jumping in boxes as they do time and time again. In the end, not managing to get the necessary heal was what took them out. But we're only a few minutes away from the final game of the NSE Winter Cup Grand Final, Game 10, but we will be back shortly after a quick break.
Try to get some money for some stuff that I need. Swear the ATM machine was laughing at me. Your girl, been running on empty, but I don't let it affect me. There are days that I consider moving back home, but every day I do, my gut keeps telling me no. Your girl, been running on daydreams, but that's just how my brain be. I don't need your doubt, nope, I don't need your doubt. Hey, just chill, I got all the time to kill, yeah, I got good vibes, good vibes. I'm too blessed to give in to any stress, it's only good vibes, good vibes. So when I can't pay the rent, I got nothing in my fridge. Got no doubt, yeah, things always turn around, yeah, I got good vibes, good vibes. Trying to get my mattress back, they stole it from me. From the suburbs, but I fake like I'm from the streets. Your girl, staying pretty.
Good morning, crack student gamers, and welcome to the British University Esports Championship Spring 2022. It's been a long time coming, and we're now live from Insomnia. We're back bigger than ever. We have so much going on here.
It's a place for all competitive gamers to come along. Even if you're not amazing, you can still take part, which is really nice, and you meet so many different students from different unis. It's just really nice, like a fun place to be.
And the NSE, being at Insomnia, is really amazing. Especially a small, isolated university like Oxford, it's great to meet other students who are into esports.
So we've got a spectator area where the student communities come and they're meeting up for the first time in probably 2 years, getting to watch the finals, and then we've also got the teams on stage playing against each other. And then also we've got a student LAN as well, as kind of like a mini LAN in a wider bring your own computer over the weekend. Super grateful for our sponsors. Our headline partner is Intel. We're also partnered with Barclays, Monster Energy, providing loads of Monster Energy to keep everyone fueled over the weekend. PC Specialist, Special Effects, and we're also partnered with Bucks as well.
Everyone in the university scene is so welcoming and so lovely. You don't see people like this anywhere else, like in a community together. And it's just all about creating those connections with different people, and it's just really amazing.
We are back with the final game for the NSE Winter Cup. I am Waxen, joined by the fabulous Mini Miner to tell you all about what we can expect from this final game number 10 of Fortnite.
This is it. The final game, the final moment we saw in game number 9. A little bit of an upset, potentially. Of course, we saw Sky Knight's army going down in unfortunate fashion and uncharacteristic fashion, you could say, as well, compared to their previous performances. But I'll tell you what, it's going to be an exciting time. I'm excited to see which teams will maybe surprise us, which teams will maybe switch things up a little bit going to the final game. This is it. This is it. This is now or never. You can't mess around. This is the time.
Of course, if you are one of the teams that is anywhere in the current placement from top 5 bottom, this is your moment to shine. You throw everything out the window and you just go for the biggest victory of your career. Even if it might not put you back into the top 5, a victory here can still make you realize, wow, we've actually got what it takes to be good players. We just need maybe a bit more practice. We need to spend a bit more time, with our rotations, understanding more the game, practice our aim a bit more. But this is where everyone can shine. And I usually love the final match of a grand final.
Yeah, this is it, isn't it? This is it. The stakes are high. We know all about the prizing. Of course, we know about, some of the teams that are a little bit lower down that are pushing for some of those points for their university, of course, for their pockets as well. Making their way into that cash prizing as well. So there's a lot to play for, not just for the win. It's also for the bragging rights of getting some cash in a tournament, as well as earning some points for your greater university at the beginning of the season. Such a huge time to do it as well. It's going to be exciting. I can't wait. And as you mentioned, this is the final game. This is where things get a little bit hectic. This is where things get a little bit desperate sometimes, because teams just think, we need to go for it. We need to go all out. We need to get eliminations left, right, and center. And that's exactly what I expect some teams to do. Some of them will be a little bit more calm, a bit more collected, I'm sure, and maybe play for more placement.
Is there a team you could highlight, other than obviously the favorites and the ones we've been mentioning in the top 5, that you think they have more potential, but we haven't really been able to see that today, that you have in mind?
I'm thinking Luke and Cole, of course. These guys, they've been playing pretty well today so far. They've been having a little bit of unlucky zones, potentially, with their rotations, but they proved to be really, really solid in their sort of mid-game fighting, in their mechanical ability. I think it's just, if a few more things fall their way, if a few more of their, maybe luck goes their way, I think they can definitely find success.
To the same extent, I would also like to mention Abs and Mikey. I feel like, especially the last couple of games, have been also very unfortunate for them, just running into Sky and Itami when they shouldn't. So maybe this is going to be their last chance of shining. And so far, I think we already see a couple of different drop spots. We don't have anyone going for Greasy or Reality Tree. As I say that, no, there's a couple of teams going Greasy. It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, we have a pretty good distribution of players so far. We saw a lot of players going towards the south side, and I think now we have a little bit more of an even distribution, you could say. Not many opting to go towards the west side, but I think we all know who's going to the Tilted Towers area. Of course, we know exactly which teams are going to be dominating that area. We see Xeon and Tills just scouting out the area. Of course, we don't necessarily have a drop map. A lot of these teams won't necessarily have their specified drop spots that everyone knows. So they'll be scouting out to see what areas are uncontested, maybe some areas that they can rotate into, have a nice free rotation going into that early game section. But Sky Knight's army, they're just enjoying themselves inside of Tilted Towers, as we've seen them do all day. And they've earned the respect of their enemies, you could say, in the lobby of their their fellow players, because there's no one in the game that's anywhere near them.
Absolutely not. And I think it would be more than deserved for them to, get the 7th victory royale to finish it off. But they're not under any pressure. Honestly, if they want, they could just probably disconnect right now, and they would still be like winning this with more than double points. But I think this is no longer about competing. This is about making a statement. This is about starting creating a legacy, making a name for yourself when it comes to competitive Fortnite.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a huge opportunity for them to practice against similarly skilled players. This is a huge opportunity for them to make a name for themselves. And if you're a champion, you don't want to be going down early in the final game. You want to end on a high. You want to be ending with a victory. And that's just what this team will be trying to do. Of course, we see Dota and Stiv. We've hopped on board with these guys a few times today. And we see Dota just using the chicken to fly around, which is another feature of pubs that we don't usually see in the competitive side of the game. But I like that. Rotation using chickens. Very interesting indeed. We see Alexa and Oxy right now. They're hunting down another team, and this is one of those teams that might need a few eliminations to make their dreams come true here into that top half of the leaderboard.
I've been noticing this. I don't know if you paid attention to this. I'm quite a big cosmetics fan for Fortnite. I don't know, competitive is not usually why we're paying attention, but Gib has changed his skins every game today.
It's a very interesting decision. It's a very interesting strategy. Maybe the outfit choice could impact gameplay. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. We'll have to see if that can impact this fight right now, though, as it looks as though his teammate Lee has gone down as Gib tries to pick up the pieces and try and get the damage down. But unfortunately, I don't think he's going to be able to. Does get the goo gun onto Mike, but that's not going to be enough to take out both as Abs gets the revive here.
And finally, Mike and Abs no longer running into the reigning champions, but into a team that they can match up skill for skill and coming out on top. Although Mike losing the duel to that very, very pesky glue gun that I think, we talked a bit about after game 1. Oh, we didn't see that much usage of the glue gun and some of the other guns. I think since then, every single game, the glue gun has been a highlight.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams have just sort of looked at some of the success that teams have had with the goo gun, and they just thought, you know what, yeah, we're doing that too. And as we can see right on our screens, Leisho Spoon decides, yep, I'm picking that up as well, even prioritizing it with some heals as well. We see 6 chug splashes, we see some shockwaves in the inventory too. So looking very, very strong at the moment, just outside of the Lustrous Lagoon area, got the high ground as well. And now Riot and Flanksy, they've decided to make their presence known in the Rocky Reels area, saying to Mike and Abs, they're not safe inside of the Rocky Reels. They're going to have a rocky end to their game if they're not careful, because Riot and Flanksy, we know all about this team's firepower.
Absolutely. 2 of the players that we saw almost on prep, like they were so close to winning a couple times, but I think they had a couple of 3rd place finishes and a couple of top 5 finishes. Maybe this is going to be the game for them to make it happen, as Riot shoots Mike in the back. Mike with no shields and gonna get down to 50 HP. Riot is aware that he whited Mike and is gonna attempt to push Mike, just trying to disengage. 25 HP, and Mike gets taken out completely by Riot. This is gonna be disastrous start for Abs and Mike.
Yeah, that's not ideal for Abs and Mike. They just had to be a little bit more careful with the third party of Riot and Flanksy there. They had to know that there is a team lurking nearby, and Riot and Flanksy, they take full advantage of that. As Riot does just stop and maybe just consider that elimination. Maybe he's clipping it. Maybe he's saving that for later on. He's thinking, you know what? I'm going to put that in the next montage as Mike does get full finished by Ray, who is pulling up just to the south side of this POI. We could see another fight brewing here as well, as Flanksy and Riot, they don't seem shy when it comes to eliminations. They don't seem shy to fight. And this is, again, another perfect example of that, as Ray and their duo is being a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more feisty here, as Flanksy does run out of bills, and now this is a difficult situation for him as he's run out, and now he's run out of HP as well, as Riot does have to pick up the pieces. Can he pick up all the pieces? I think he can, and there it is. Yeah, easy eliminations for Riot to take out. Flanksy did fall, so they're going to have to spend extra time getting that reboot off. It's not going to be easy for them, though, because as we've seen, third parties after third parties, they're looking.
Yes, I think, it's not the right time to party just yet. You have one more game to win, and Riot right now all on his own in what is the reminder of a base. Meanwhile, Shadow Diamond and Hypeli with a really, really good rotate in the middle of the zone. No opponents around, and we'll be able to get in that loot. We have almost 740 brick for Shadow Diamond, and this this seems to be a pretty good start for this duo with a pretty solid loadout for him.
Yeah, they have a really good loot. They have really good maps. They have a really good position as well. That's the most important thing for this team. They look to be a little bit more of a team that are going to be playing for the placements in this final game. They're not going to be going too crazy on the high eliminations, which is what I like. I like to see that. I like to see teams that are adjusting their game plan depending on the game. You know, they need to try and get as many placements as possible, as many points, try and squeeze as many points as possible from this final game. And of course, Sky and Itami, they're doing just that as well. They're being extra sneaky on the edge of zone. They have to be careful, though, of course, with snipers in the game right now. One wrong move, one wrong position, and they could be out of the game. The Sky just sat behind the tree, scoping out the enemies. We saw a lot of action going down at Rocky Reels, and I think we'll see a reboot there very soon. Of course, we saw Riot having to clean up the fight that Flanksy went down in, and I think we'll be seeing that reboot coming off in just a second. I think Itami and Sky, they're just going to be looking for that. They'll be waiting for that reboot to come off and then push in.
They are almost getting contact, and Flanksy starts getting... Sorry, Dota just getting spotted in the zone, and Stiv is just going to glue gun all over them. And we now see Stiv, Alexa, Oxy, and Dota for life having a great skirmish on the edge zone. So far, no team is taking the advantage, but we have to consider Dota and Stiv are the ones tanking zone damage.
Yeah, they are. The Storm is going to be constantly ticking away at their damage. That's something that you can guarantee. As we see the glue gun being used once again, the goo raining down. Stiv just does get a little crack on Alexa right there. Gets the knock there as well, as Oxy now has to try and survive. But no, the goo is too much as Stiv and Dota, they clean up this fight fairly simply. And that right there is a prime example of the power of the goo gun.
That is going to be the end of the NSE Grand Finals Cup for Alexa and their teammate. And Stiv and Dota, maybe one of the more quieter duos so far, doing lots of damage. And despite getting just this double kill and Stiv, you know, taunting, maybe he knows he's on stream. He shouldn't because we have a delay. But Stiv celebrating a small victory for their team and also dealt lots of damage early on, I think, in the skirmishes they had in their POI.
Yeah, definitely. I always like to see a few emotes coming out after an elimination. That's always nice, as you know, just brings a little bit of lightheartedness to the high intensity competition we have here. As Tills does have an elimination rotating towards the center of the map. Pretty solid loadout as well. We're seeing lots of purple and gold inside of there. We see the goo gun again in another inventory. Xeon just behind as well, just lacking on that white HP, but I'm sure they'll be able to pick up some sooner rather than later. Tills again trying to find as many mats as possible, getting those material count up, because we saw as what happened to Itani in that previous game. If you run out of materials, especially if you're just down to that wood build, it's not going to last too long in the end game, especially when everyone's looking at you. Key Dog, Lord Elorium right now, these guys are just trying to hold down the fort of Shiny Sound there. I'm going to wait for that perfect opportunity to snipe, and unfortunately it doesn't quite connect. They're going to have to rotate sooner rather than later, though, because that storm will be coming in, and they've got to rotate.
Very patient. Unfortunately, it does not pay off, but they have the hot air balloons that's going to help them rotate as much as they want. Let's just see if they're going to be at the spot in the air. Meanwhile, they let Coleslaw and their duo go in first, and that's going to allow them the chance to maybe get a couple of tags in the air. They're not even going to attempt. I don't think they spotted them. And Lord Elorium and Key-Dog just being very patient, but it's just the two of them. The other two duos in Shiny have already left.
They've left. They're the last ones to rotate, which is okay. I don't think that's too much of a bad situation for them. They can use the balloon to rotate, and we saw Cheeto and David's in a similar situation. I believe it was in game 2
I think it was game 1.
So was it game 1?
Yep, we're finishing off the same way we started.
On top of a balloon. We saw it kind of work out for them last time. They rotated quite early as well. So I think what they're able to do here is they're able to pick up as many tags, as much damage as they possibly can on top of this balloon. Just trying to find as many of the players as possible to look for, pick up some damage, potentially an elimination up here as well with a sniper. We saw David connecting with some snipes earlier on as Sky picks up Mike in the feed once again, showing that although it's the last game, Sky and Itani, they're not letting their foot off the gas.
And they shouldn't. I don't think they should. Like we talked about is, legacy statements proving that they deserve to be the dominant champions that they have displayed so far. But Cheeto and David, I love their consistency. You did it in game 1 and you got quite far. You didn't manage to get the victory, and you go back to what you know works best for you. And that's something that not a lot of teams are able to do because, you know, it doesn't quite work out for you. You don't get the victory royale, you don't get that many elims, and you just feel desperate in changing your tagging. Meanwhile, we swap into Marley, getting a nice tag onto Tix, and it's a great skirmish. Marley gets pushed in the box, but managed to build over and finally getting a kill onto Xeon. It's now Marley and her teammate Mint in a 2 versus 1.
Marley and Mint there, almost falling victim to the lightsaber in the box from Xeon, but that was close. That was a bit hectic. I think they were on top of that fight. They were on top of the fight completely, and then the lightsaber just completely turned the fight on its head, turned the tables almost, and Marley now able to live to tell the tale as Ashley and Million, we saw them fighting off spawn in the previous game. We saw them clutching up, and looks as though they have been able to find elimination already. Stiv and Dota looking to apply the pressure with that goo gun. Ashley trying to get some return fire on as well, and using the truck just to get away as quickly as possible, but Million's left stranded alone. This is an interesting strategy, but no, Ashley being a great team that they are, comes back, picks them up. I like this from them. Million spots another player, Alex, right now. Ace just on this other side of this river. This is where they have to be very, very careful. This is where the decision is made. Do they fight? Do they keep rotating? It looks as though they've gone for the former.
I think they realized it's a 2 versus 1. The solo might get cornered here and sandwiched in yet again. Ashley and Million taking control of the high ground. And I think, no, Aix had the high ground, but now they get broken down. Only half HP, 1 HP, and they're going to get pushed. Trying to take the high ground again, but they need to heal. And Dota 2 for life steals the kill, third partying. And now Million and Ashley are getting spammed from far distance. Look at the glue gun. Stiv putting in so much work. Ashley losing half of the shield already.
Stiv and Dota aren't giving up that easily. Ashley and Million might have run, but they cannot hide from the mighty Stiv and Dota. They're able to apply the pressure using that goo gun. Ashley fending off for now using those brick bills, and I think they're both going to have to rotate in. They're going to take the smart move here. I think they both identified that, yeah, we're not in the zone. We're not quite safe from the storm here, so let's all rotate in. Let's all collectively do that. I like the smartness there, but no! Riot turns back and says, you know what? Let's take a snipe on Million, and Million does fall victim to that. Now Ashley has to try and pick up Million and stay back in the storm because they're going to be stuck.
Meanwhile, I think Riot hit a snipe from very far away because Dota was in between them and Riot was not part of that duo. Meanwhile, we see Keydog just jumping into a box and now it's a 2 versus 1. Well, 1 versus 2 for Keydog. Can it make anything happen? Can they carry this victory for Lord Elorium? So far, they have advantage and Diamond is just under them. Meanwhile, Sky gets the kill onto Riot. But Keydog is in a very, very precautious position and they're losing the high ground. They're getting coned in and this is not looking very good for them as Keydog is trying to stay alive. But I think they're not gonna be able to as they get broken down and Keydog got the dodge full damage. No! It's just gonna be awaited with the open arms at the bottom by Hype. Shotgun to the face, and that is gonna be the end for Keydog.
Yeah, that's the downside of building up to maximum height, especially when you're 1v2. Of course, one person can keep you at bay when there's another person all the way down, chopping it out. As you see, Itani getting another elimination in the feed. We see Envelopes and Latio right now just rotating in. This is one of those more central zones, so no complaints about the zone from any team because we're right in the center of the map pretty much here, just outside of Chrome Crossroads. Stiv picking up an elimination onto Sky, so that's a Titan player out of the game for now. It looks as though they were able to pick up that finish as well, so now Itami left as a solo yet again. This is a huge turning point in the game, a huge opportunity, an open door for the teams that are a little bit below to maybe pick up some points.
Whoa, such a good spray now coming in from Glacier Spoon in the river with a get a kill. Meanwhile, Dota loses their life to Itami, gets the secure, and now it's going to be Itami in a 1 versus 1, and I think we know who's going to come out on top of that clutch. Meanwhile, Glacier Spoon just spamming away with the glue and putting pressure on Itami might force him to just slow down a bit, but look at Itami already shockwaving away or just padding away from that engage. Let's see if Glacier Spoon can find the location of Itami to keep on spamming the glue gun.
Let's see if they can. Of course, Itami having to clutch up as a solo. If it wasn't quite enough in the previous game, they've got another chance. They've got another opportunity to make it happen in the final game. Itami getting stuck, though. Their vehicle has been exploded. It's been blown up. Safety of the water for now for Itami, but it's not going to be too safe as there's plenty of players looking on down. And yet again, we see Itami as a solo having to clutch up. Sky looking on from the ghost of Sky, if you like. Having to look on at Itami now. He's just playing it very, very calmly. This is such a contrast to what we saw from them earlier on. We saw them so aggressive, jumping from box to box, particularly from Itami. We saw him just jumping in the box, getting in the elimination, getting another one, constantly jumping in and out of boxes. And now he's got to play a complete flip to what he's used to. Play a little bit more calm, a little more collected. He does need a refresh. So this is where you got to think about the balance. Do I go for eliminations to get the refreshes? Do I just stick to the guaranteed placement points? But oh no, the goo gun. It's going to present a problem here.
Itami gets pushed away, but I think Aiden might have just made enough space for Itami to rotate, and now he's going to find a great position and base up right under Cheeto and David, who might be unaware. But no, Itami makes his presence felt. Like, no, I'm right here. You're not going to be able to just pad away to the next zone.
He needs it as well. 7 builds for Itami. That's not going to be enough to make the plays in that end game. Will he be able to pick up that crucial refresh? For someone like Envelopes and Lacio right now, they're just sat inside of a bush. They have a long way to rotate those, so it'll be interesting to see how they opt to do that. Will they use the shockwaves? Will they use the chrome splashes to turn into a blob? It looks as though they're going to use the latter as an option to rotate, as Stiv does go down in the feed right now. This is going to be almost a game of chess here for this team. How can they rotate without having too much of a problem for them? What's the best move to make? What's the most smart move? And I think they're just assessing that right now. They're surely communicating, they're conversing as to which way to go. Lacio decides to take the stance and make the early rotation into the zone. Just got 1 second left on that storm before it starts closing on in and forcing the teams to get closer and closer. Lacio does decide to shoot them in the back right there, which isn't always the best strategy because you end up getting those players stuck inside of the storm. This is a rough one, but they use the shockwaves. I like this from this team.
Yeah, a bit questionable just, giving away your position when you were trying to quietly rotate in the zone, but it works out for them in the end. Well, still not in center zone or not even edge zone, but they still have 30 seconds to get in and a shockwave to spare on Envelopes. Let's see if they're going to do that. Meanwhile, Marley gets knocked down by Shadow Demon, still not getting the thirst. As I say that, Shadow Demon just gets the thirst.
Always the way, but Shadow Diamond doing a great job to pick out Marley right there, who's had a very, very solid day today. You can definitely be proud of how well they have played, particularly in that first game, just doing so well as a solo. As Sky picks up, or Sky is actually out, so I don't think Sky is actually in the game, but we're seeing the feed catch up right there as Itami now is down below. Coles, Lukey, this is one of the teams that I was looking out for. Hopefully they can, prove their worth in this final game and keep progressing at the rate they are. And this is the double goo gun. This is a bad situation for Ashley, and Million identifies that and completely decides to run away. Flies back some goo to counter it. But is it going to be enough? It's going to be enough to sort of halt the pressure for now, to suppress the pressure from above from Cheeto and David. They're in the prime position again. We've seen it before, but they weren't able to hold it. Can they this time?
So many kills happening right now on the scoreboard. We are only down to 15 players in 10 teams. Coleslaw and Lukey still pretty good positions, but no builds right here from Coleslaw. Meanwhile, David gets a kill, 14 with another, and Itami takes out Million. Itami still in this game with low loot, still managed to get kills and get those placement points.
Yeah, Cheeto right now. We can see Cheeto and David so split, so it looks as though they're trying to claim both sides of the zone just to, counter any potential possibility that the zone will go to a different way, which is what I like to see. We see Itami on the screen right now, 4 eliminations to their name, just still lacking on the material side of things. You can tell he's just thinking, do I go into the storm to get that refresh? They only have 19 builds. They're going to need to try and find as much as possible, farming every single build around them just to get any scraps of wood to keep them afloat in this end game. The heals are not looking too great either. 5 minis is going to be enough, but not quite great for them. We see them just trying to use all of these old builds, trying to find a position to get into. And all these teams that are in the better positions with all those builds, they'll be happy. They'll be looking for eliminations. Itami picks up another elimination. That could be a crucial refresh into their progression into the end game. And Cheeto and David, their high ground dominance has surely come to an end because Cheeto's run out of mats.
Oh, this is going to be very, very costly. Hopefully David with still some to play. Meanwhile, Cheeto popping one of the big shields. And yes, 16 builds in play, not that many. But as I say that, David gets a great kill onto Mint. Abs, look at Abs. What a position in the corner. But I think David is aware Abs is there. He's just going to change position. Not going to hold Abs under the crossfire. But Abs still has to make their way. Finally gets spotted again by David, and Shockwave out. Abs in the high ground, but gets beamed from the sky. David says, "You're mine."
David was not having any of that. We've seen some crazy shockwave plays today so far, but David was not going to make it another one. Itami, though, still alive and kicking. Still alive and well and alive and healthy, but finally he's found himself some materials and able to use all of these old bills to find himself a little bit of a top to make their way through. 4 teams left, one of which is, of course, Itami, one of which is David's, and they're running low on materials right now, so their high ground dominance surely will come to an end. They managed to knock down the players down below, and yet another shockwave combining with the goo gun as well to knock off the high ground demons of David and Cheeto. They're going to have to pick up the pieces right now as Cheeto has fallen. David's going to have to go it alone as he doesn't have any bills left to try and clutch up here. Itami doing just that, picking up the bills, picking up the refresh from Cheeto, and now he's got a few more bills to work with to keep himself afloat.
14 and Paradox yet again in the top 4, time and time again. Can this be the game where they make it? Shockwaves in place, shockwaves galore, steal 2 for 14, just popping envelope up, but the Gugan does so much damage, 14 is out. Leisho Spoon says, "No, you're not gonna take this away from me," and now it's only Paradox gonna maybe try to get the res. I don't think there's enough time, but they will attempt to. I'm gonna give up on that idea. Get the splashes. Time is going.
Oh,
no!
no way.
Tanking the storm, and it's only 2 teams left. It's David in a 1 versus 2, and Envelope gets the victory royale for the final game.
David right there, not quite able to clutch up on the low ground. We saw them on the high ground there so early on, but of course they ran out of materials. They couldn't keep themselves up there. They didn't get those refreshes long enough, but David had to fall down. Second place for that team right there, though. I think Itami coming third as well, so not a bad performance at all overall. A crazy last game.
Absolutely unexpected, and what a great attempt from Itami to make it all the way, I think, to the top 4, maybe top 5, not quite sure, but this is not about them. Itami and Sky, they are going to be our grand champions, maybe with a couple of underwhelming performances in the last 2 games, but we now can take a quick look at the replay from this game number 10.
Yeah, we get to see a little relive some of the moments here, of course. Some crazy plays from all different sides of the map, all different teams, using all different types of strategies, and that's what today has really been about, hasn't it? It's been about the teams adapting, you know, the teams being a little bit more adaptable with their strategies and a little bit more versatile when it comes down to the loot that they've been able to achieve and be able to obtain, because we see so many of these goo guns. We saw this double elimination from Stiv onto Alexa and their teammate with the goo gun, showing the power of it. And I think that's why we haven't seen as much of a domination towards the end of the day, because we've seen players get a little bit more streetwise as to where everyone is and what everyone's using.
Yeah, that goo gun really made for a lot of sticky situations. Meanwhile, I don't think we got this. We only had the later part of the fight with Marley getting the last kill, or the last shot onto Xeon, but that was because Xeon attempted a lightsaber kill onto Marley. Very, very nice, would have seen that. But meanwhile, Keydog being taken out from their tower, and that was it. Mini. Game number 10. That was the end of the NSE Cup.
Yeah, it didn't disappoint, did it, realistically? It was an unbelievable game, full of eliminations, full of great placements, and a real good variety of playstyles as well, all coming together. I thought David and company had it in their hands on the high ground, but of course, they ran out of bills, they ran out of materials, they weren't proactive enough at getting eliminations early on enough, so they had to fall as well as Itani, of course. We spoke so much about Sky earlier, doing some great solo clutching. Itani, yet again, proving his worth in the endgame.
Yes, some great plays, but I think my biggest takeaway from this grand final has been the growth we have seen from all of the top 10 teams other than Sky and Itami, who came in as the favorites. Solid performance last week, but the other teams grew so much in skill, confidence, mechanic, and understanding of the game throughout the 5 games we've seen today. And I think that is my biggest takeaway. Playing in this sort of environment against teams that are your same level, good level, even better level than you is what gonna propel you. That's, you know, the best practice you can find is playing against people that are better than you. And that's what we saw from all these teams. And it has definitely showed in the last couple of games. And speaking of the last couple of games, let's take a quick look at the overall leaderboard for the NSE Winter Cup. No, not the overall one, just the Game 10 leaderboard.
Yeah, this is just the Game 10 leaderboard right here. We see the big boys on top once again with 7 eliminations. That's a huge number for them. 52 points. Of course, we see the Benji Fishies again in that top 3 situation, which is really, really good. We highlighted it after game number 1. They had eliminations, but they couldn't quite couple it with placement. This time, they've got a match made in heaven. They've got eliminations and placement in the previous games. Right now, they've had a little bit more placement. I think that's just the last game nerves, potentially. You know, maybe forcing them to not go for fights, and they think, okay, let's just start being a little bit more conservative here with the way we're playing. Of course, Cup Esports or QB Esports, 7 eliminations once again. They're popping off, as we already know, but some solid performances all around from all these teams.
Absolutely, but now that was game 10. Let's take a quick look at the overall results for this grand finals. And we have in first place with a total of 462 points, 146 eliminations, and 6 victory royales, none other than your grand champions, QUB Esports.
Incredible job from QUB Esports. They've shown their dominance all day today, and although their ship was rocked in game number 9 and 10, they still had enough of a buffer to keep them all the way on the top. But of course, Riot and Flanksy we saw in second place. These guys done really, really well, so they've had a really, really solid day. Same with the big boys. These guys are doing really, really well, and just like being really proactive in those eliminations towards the end, and really proactive in terms of placement. We didn't see them have an amazing start at the beginning of the sort of tournament and the middle of it, but they've really just kept their consistency going towards the latter stages, and they've done a great job. Same with the Benji Fishies. They fixed a lot of their mistakes, and they were able to capitalize on the sort of final 4 games.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to agree. I was looking at the Benji Fishes, and I think they had a total of 78 points in week 1. So, managing to bounce back and get that top 4 on the back of solid back-to-back performances is something outstanding. And QUB, we said their names so many times, Mini. But they are the grand champions. We got to commend Sky and, well, obviously, not just Sky. Tommy, they were both on a completely different level when it came to Fortnite. But what is the next step, do you think, for this duo?
Well, of course, at the moment, we have Duos Competitive. That is the main game mode that we see from Fortnite Competitive. We see a lot of the Elite Cups, the Challenger Cups, the Contender Cups, all those in-game tournaments. I'd like to see this team really take this experience and use it in some other in-game events, maybe some other events as well, just to really get that experience, maybe play some scrims, maybe just really use this experience and really use this potential that they have and make the most of it, because this is a solid duo that clearly have such good chemistry. They clearly understand each other so well that they can really transfer that so well into some of the in-game tournaments, if they don't already. I'm assuming they don't, but if they do, let's see continued development, because they have the talent.
Well, I think we can ask them ourselves, as I think we will have the opportunity of bringing none other than the grand champions right here live for an interview. Congratulations!
Thank you.
Great to have you here, Sky. I mean, what a performance today. How do you feel? I mean, you've won. I think going into today, you sort of felt like you must have had, a good chance at winning. But how does it feel to finally put the nail in the coffin?
Yeah, it was a good feeling. I was pretty confident going in today, but we did get kind of destroyed in the last 2 games. I think we were a bit too confident going in the last 2.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to ask you about that. Obviously, we saw a change in your placing and results in the last couple of games. So do you think that was, as you mentioned, on the back of overconfidence, or after that game 8, you were like, we won this, we can just relax?
Yeah, we kind of knew we'd won by that point, so we wanted to relax, get the games more stacked, because it was much more fun playing the more stacked games. And then that playstyle just didn't suit us very well, as we ended up dying both games.
Yeah, I mean, you went down, unfortunately, but it was still a solid performance by Tommy, and you guys clearly have great chemistry. Is this something you're going to take into future tournaments? Do you already play competitive at a high level, or do you not have much time?
Yeah, so I do play competitively for Fortnite. I do play with a different duo partner right now, but me and Tommy have played a couple of tournaments in the past, and might try that again.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think I speak both for myself and Mini right here that it was a pleasure to watch both of you play, and hopefully get to see you more in the future on the same server or even in different teams. Best teammates can also make for a very, very furious, very strong opponent. So that's going to be very interesting. But my next question would be, what is next for you?
Well, I hope there'd be more NSE tournaments for Fortnite. I really enjoyed this one. And hopefully I could win some more.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, just finally, just before we go, do you have any tips for anyone that maybe didn't do so well today, or any players that are aspiring to be on your sort of level of gameplay? Is there anything you do to practice, or is there any tips you give them?
It just all comes down to experience. I've played a lot of tournaments myself. You might as well just try them out. Like, there's nothing that can go wrong. Just playing more in-game tournaments. They're probably the best practice you could get.
Well, that's a great advice. Thank you so much for the time, and thank you so much for the show you put on display for us and everybody at home today. Would you have any final shout-outs you'd like to make?
Well, I can just shout out my Twitter. It's Twitter Sky I Will Never Lose, IWNL.
Thank you so much, Sky, and that will be it from it. Everybody at home, give it up for the NSE Winter Cup for Fortnite, Sky. Such a pleasure to have him, and such a humble and nice guy, and obviously giving us a bit of an insight about what changed in their playstyle during the last 2 games, Mini.
Yeah, really great to see, and it's great to get a little insight as to what they usually do. Do they usually play? Is it, is there anything that they can give to some players that aren't maybe at their level yet, but are aspiring to be? And that's always great to really get that insight from the players. It's nice to see.
Yes, and obviously I would have to agree with what the Sky said. I can't wait to see more Fortnite here for NSE, because I think we had a blast, and there was some outstanding games of Fortnite throughout, like starting with game 1, which was a completely different pace, and all the changes, and you mentioned this Mini so many times, the styles and the approaches from all of the teams in the lobby changed so many times that I felt like I was watching different teams in every single different game.
It did feel like that, yeah. And we saw those sort of styles and strategies develop as the day went on, which is something that I really like to see. Teams that aren't just sticking to what's not working. They're trying to make what isn't working work by adding a few different strategies in there, maybe switching up drop spots, even switching up loot, switching up rotation paths. I think it's something that we've seen today, and hopefully that'll continue to develop outside of today as well.
Well, I think we are nearing the end of our broadcast, and I'd like to thank you, Mini, for all the great work. It was my pleasure to be here alongside you today, and I want to give you the chance. Do you have any final shoutouts or words you'd like to say to the stream?
I mean, thank you to all the players for playing today. Thank you to the team behind the scenes for the production that have put it all together. They did a great job. And of course, Waxon, great to commentate alongside you for the first time. It was the first time we got to hang out together today, and it was an absolute blast. So thank you for that. And yeah, great job to the players that did well today. And for those that didn't, there's still more opportunity, I'm sure.
Absolutely, I have to agree with you, Mini. Again, thank you for being here. I would like to shout out everybody behind the scenes here at NSE for putting together what you've seen on screen today and what happened behind the scenes in preparation for this outstanding tournament, the games from last week. Go give Mini a follow on Twitter. He's got it right there above his head, so he's definitely going to appreciate that. Shout out to everybody for making this possible, and shout out to you at home for tuning in onto the NSE Winter Cup for Fortnite Grand Finals. I was Waxon. It was my pleasure to be here today alongside Mini, and we will see you here next time on the NSE Twitch channel.
Good morning, crack student gamers, and welcome to the British University Esports Championship Spring 2022. It's been a long time coming, and we're now live from Insomnia. We're back bigger than ever. We have so much going on here.
It's a place for all competitive gamers to come along. Even if you're not amazing, you can still take part, which is really nice, and you meet so many different students from different unis. It's just really nice, like a fun place to be.
And the NSE, by being at Insomnia, is really amazing. Especially a small, isolated university like Oxford, it's great to meet other students who are into esports.
So we've got a spectator area where the student communities come, and they're meeting up for the first time in probably 2 years, getting to watch the finals, and then we've also got the teams on stage playing against each other. And then also we've got a student LAN as well, as kind of like a mini LAN in a wider bring your own computer over the weekend. super grateful for our sponsors. Our headline partner is Intel. We're also partnered with Barclays, Monster Energy, providing loads of Monster Energy to keep everyone fueled over the weekend, PC Specialist, Special Effects, and we're also partnered with Bucks as well.
Everyone in the university scene is so welcoming and so lovely. You don't see people like this anywhere else, like in a community together. And it's just all about creating those connections with different people, and it's just really amazing.
Together, and wouldn't it be better than get more money, less anxiety, more passion, please? Wanna alter who I am, get a little lost, can't find my way, but I can't stay here forever. Get a little low to low my pace till I can face it better. White knuckles on the way down, but my friends are all around. White knuckles, letting go now. All my friends, they help me out. Everything is better now. I'm finding my way back somehow. What if we got in a van, left for the coast? Wouldn't it be simple then? Find perfect peace, give up everything. Are we in harmony? Looking for a better plan. We get a little lost along the way, but we can't stay here forever. Get a little low to low the pace till we can face it better. White knuckles on the way down, but our friends are all around. White knuckles, letting go now. All our friends, they help us out. Everything's better now. I'm finding my way back somehow. All I know is that things change. We find a way to make it through. 'Cause all we know is that things change, but it's not so bad with you. White knuckles on the way down, but my friends are all around. White knuckles, letting go now. All my friends, they help me out. White knuckles on the way down, but our friends are all around. White knuckles, letting go now. All our friends, they help us out. Everything's better now. I'm finding my way back somehow. Everything is better now. Finding my way back somehow. Everything is better now. Finding our way back somehow.
Try to get some money for some stuff that I need. Swear the ATM machine was laughing at me. Your girl, been running on empty, but I don't let it affect me. There are days that I consider moving back home, but every day I do, my gut keeps telling me no. Your girl, been running on daydreams, but that's just how my brain be. I don't need your doubt, nope, I don't need your doubt. Hey, just chill, I got all the time to kill. Yeah, I got good vibes, good vibes. I'm too blessed to give in to any stress. It's only good vibes, good vibes. So when I can't pay the rent, I got nothing in my friends. God knows the suburbs, but I fake like I'm from the streets. Yo, girl, staying pretty busy, learning how to city. Life is way too short to get caught up in that mess.